All right, welcome everybody to the second semifinal for the Unmatched Winter of Champions 2023. So, if you missed it earlier, we saw a really close match between Itokud, who we have here on commentary, by the way, and Kiet. And that was Ito took the win 2-1 in that one. So, we are going to see who Ito is going to be facing as his opponent for the grand finals. And I am super excited to get into this. But joining me today are my wonderful commentary crew. So, we'll start off with Ashley. She is you're new to the commentary crew, but definitely not new to the tournament scene. So, how you doing, Ashley?
Hi, doing well. I'm just having a blast to be here. Glad I get to commentate. For those of you who don't know, Unmatched is my husband. He got me into the game. So it's just fun for me to get to be a part of this team for his game. And I unfortunately got out in pools this tournament, but I'll be back next time.
Yes, definitely, because you did make top 8 last time, I believe. Is that right?
I did.
Very impressive showing. So obviously, having Chad as a practice partner definitely leads to some good things.
No joke.
Well, I'm happy to have you here, Ashley. It's really cool that you get to commentate your husband's match here. So,
Yeah.
and then we have Anar, also known as Lollipop Magnum, on the Discord. How you doing, Anar?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How about you, John?
I'm doing so good, man. I am glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Always excited for some high quality, high tier unmatched.
Oh, most definitely. And then last but not least, we have Ito fresh off the win. Ito, thanks for joining us on commentary. How you doing?
Hi, I'm feeling great. Looking forward to see who I'll be facing tomorrow for the title of Champion of Winter Champions.
That's right. That's right. You're getting some firsthand insights into maybe what you have to expect for tomorrow. So that's really cool to see. So, yeah, thank you all for joining me. And before we get into the games, Unmatched is made by Restoration Games. They're an amazing company, very supportive of the tournament scene and the whole online community. And they just make really high quality products. And Unmatched is no exception, as the name would suggest. So let's go ahead. If you're unfamiliar with this game, it's a very easy to learn but hard to master little tabletop skirmish game where you get all kinds of different cool fighters and you battle against each other to find out who is indeed unmatched. So let's play a quick video so that you can learn how to play this game if you're unfamiliar. Unmatched is a card-based tactical fighting game featuring various characters from history, literature, and fantasy. The goal? Reduce the opposing hero's health to 0. Players take turns performing any combination of 2 actions, from maneuvering, scheming, or attacking. A maneuver causes the player to draw a card from their deck and lets them move any of their fighters around the board. They may increase the distance of their move by discarding a card known as a boost. When a scheme card is played, simply follow the text on the card to complete the action. For an attack, the turn player will choose a card from their hand to place face down for combat. The opponent will have the option to place one of their cards down as defense. The value on the cards will determine the damage dealt in combat. Melee fighters can only attack adjacent spaces, while ranged fighters can also attack any space within their color-coordinated zone. Some characters have sidekicks to help them out, and others fight solo. Each hero has their own unique abilities and deck of cards to bring the character to life. Because in battle, there are no equals. So there you have it. And again, it's really easy to learn, so I would highly recommend if you have not tried this game out yet, definitely give it a go. I'm sure you're going to get addicted very quickly like all of us have. And if you really want to, you can try to get into the competitive scene. It's very friendly and welcoming. And, you know, you never know how far you can go because, Ito, is this your first tournament or second?
First tournament ever.
First tournament ever, and he's in the grand finals. So you never know what can happen. So if you guys are at all interested, I really would encourage you to jump in and just start playing some games. It's a blast. Now, up until this point, we started with 112 players in the event, and we were split into 16 different pools of 7 players each, and you would play 2 games against each opponent in your pool, and the top 2 point earners, you'd get a point for each game you won, and the top 2 would advance into the elimination bracket. So all of this has been made possible and tracked through the wonderful League website created by Frank K from the Discord, and Frank puts a ton of work to create this essentially for free. So huge shout out to him for doing all of this and making this all possible. And I'm sure you guys have been keeping up with the tournament on the Discord, you know, if you've been involved. But if you're unfamiliar, let's just go check out UM League. UM League is your one-stop shop for all things Unmatched. Follow the official tournaments and see player standings updated in real time, along with detailed match data for each opponent. Join the ranked ladder and compete in monthly seasons with a rotating cast of fighters and maps. Study the fighter plays and win rate data to climb to the top and become the season champion. You can also find fighter statistics for every official character currently released and compare the win percentage to the sample size at a glance. Or dive deeper with individual win rates for each available matchup and find the most popular matchups to try out for yourself. Look up individual player data and see past performances and gain insight into their favorite fighters. You can find all of this and more over at umleague.net. Don't forget to join the Discord and get involved today. So there you have it. That's UM League at a glance, and it really is an amazing tool for the competitive Unmatched community, and Frank is constantly coming up with new ideas to improve the site, so who knows where that's going to take us in the future, but huge shout out to him for all the hard work he's put in to make this platform. Now, before we get into the match, these players have both come a long way, right? They've had a tough schedule behind them, and to get to this point, they've had to face a lot of tough opponents. Ashley, since you're married to Chad, I'm sure you have some extra insights. But how do you think he's feeling going into this match, seeing as he is the current champion holder?
Oh man, he just loves this game so much. He's always so excited to play, and always like that pre-tournament jitters when you get in and just like so ready to go. But he has just had a blast this whole tournament. I know at the beginning, even in pools, he's like, oh my gosh, what if Connor beats me out of pools? But he did end up making it out, just kind of taking it one game at a time. And it's fun, even like this last game that he had playing the Houdini Robin Hood. That was one that the two of us had practiced together going into that match. When he's like, babe, I think Robin Hood has the tools for Houdini. I said, let's try it. So we did matchup of the month style, and I actually lost as both sides, but it got us enough information for him to take that into the tournament. So it's just really fun to get to do that preparation with him, and he's very dedicated to learning and doing well, and so he has fun. He really does.
Yeah, you love to see it. At the end of the day, this is all for fun. You know, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, in a high tournament stakes, situation like this, but it's all fun and games at the end. And speaking of, how the players might be feeling, we did get Connor, who was on commentary earlier today. He got to sit down in a brief interview with each of the players to get some of their thoughts and feelings going into the match. So let's go ahead and take a look at that footage and watch the What Happened pregame show.
All right, hey everyone, welcome to the What Happened pregame show. I am joined today by Animal. Animal, you want to do a little bit of an introduction and talk about your build-up to this point in the semifinals?
Sure. Thanks, Connor. I got into this game a little over a year ago. Been playing it a bit casually. Eventually, one of my friends said, "Hey, you should try one of the tournaments for this." I did. Things have gone really well, and I'm happy about that. Happy to play in the semifinals here.
Awesome. Well, friendship is definitely magic. So I am curious, Animal, what kind of preparations have you been taking for your big match coming up?
Not that much different from normal. Obviously practicing a bunch of matchups, trying to figure out draft strategy, stuff like that. I do have a little secret piece of information in that I happen to know that Chad has been playing Frosthaven, and I know a lot about that, and worst comes to worst, I can threaten him with spoilers from it if he wins. So that's in my back pocket.
Well, blackmail is always a great option when it comes to the Unmatched semifinals. Chad is definitely a legendary Unmatched player with quite the track record. How are you feeling with your match coming up against him?
Obviously, Chad's a great opponent, reigning champion right now, so I'm very excited to play with him. Honestly, I don't feel too much pressure. This was my goal to get this far, and I'll be happy with any outcome. It's surely going to be a great game, though.
Awesome, and of course, I have to know, if you do in fact beat him and advance to the grand finals, will you be hitting him with the What Happened?
Probably. I'm going to try to. I might forget in the moment, but yes.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me. All right, we're here with the What Happened pregame show. I am today joined by Chad. Chad, you want to do a brief introduction and talk a little bit about your tournament run up to this point?
Absolutely. Well, thank you first for having me. Ever since I was a child, I've dreamed of being on this pregame show, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, my name is Chad Edwards. I'm married to a finalist for Unmatched, and then my son will one day grow up to destroy Zero Skater 12 in tournament. So I come from a family of unmatched players, and I'm here to party.
Well, you love to hear that there's an Unmatched running through the family. So, Chad, I am curious, what kind of preparations have you been taking for your upcoming match?
Yes, thank you. Well, recently, most of my tourney prep comes from me playing the new Teen Spirit set, which is not involved at all in this tournament, and it really helps me get to the right mind space for how to not play those fighters in this tournament.
So, Chad, Little Expressionless Animal is definitely an excellent player to be making it to the semifinals. How are you feeling about in your upcoming match against him?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, to be honest, I am deathly terrified of expressionless animals in general. Like owls, spotted barn owls, they terrify me. However, because he's a little expressionless animal, I really don't think there's too much to worry about.
Thank you very much for joining me, Chad. And I have one final question for you. Hold on, John, can you? My final question to you is, will you be asking him what happened if, in fact, you do win and advance to the grand finals?
Absolutely. And in fact, I plan to ask him what happened even if I lose.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Chad, and I'm excited to hear you yell what happened whether or not you lose.
All right, so we got a little bit of fun insight into the players' thoughts going into this match. I think both players are probably feeling pretty confident, coming off such a great tournament run so far up to this point. Now, it's all going to come down to the draft, right? The draft is so important, especially in Arsenal. You have a couple of steps to it. First, you have to get your rosters of 4 fighters, right? And you want to hope that you have good matchups overall. And then it comes to the assignments, and that's where things can definitely turn around if you're not careful. And some of it comes down to luck, and some of it is mind games and strategic planning. So there's a lot that goes into the draft phase. But Ashley, I do want to ask you if you have any predictions on what kind of fighters we might see on Chad's lineup.
Oh man, I wish I had a short answer on that. I think as he was kind of looking through Animal's history, he's like, his draft has been all over the place. So he was kind of going to be taking it one step at a time. I know one thing that he kind of predicted was that he might end up with Sherlock. I know Sherlock had been let through a few times, so from Animal's side, so that's something that we could see on Chad's lineup. Other than that, if he wants to be fun again, could end up with Robin if Houdini's on Animal's side, which I think would be a fun game to see that rematched if anybody learned anything from watching that the first time. I think other than that, I think we'll actually see them go down a little bit into like the mid tiers. I know he loves Moon Knight. If you definitely see Chad playing Moon Knight. So if that got banned out, Chad certainly picked him. If it got banned, then we'll know, and it's not on his roster. But that's definitely one of his strongest fighters.
Yeah, Chad did. I mean, we've talked, obviously, we practice pretty often, and Chad told me if he gets Moon Knight on his roster, he's feeling very confident. So we'll see if he actually ends up with the Moon Knight or not. But Anar, do you have any predictions for the way the draft might go? Like, do you think we're going to see any appearances maybe by the big 3?
It's hard to say, actually. I would love to see some mid-tier characters. Maybe we will see some, I don't know, like, I just want to say we are maybe a little bit tired of playing Houdini, Sattler, and so on. And maybe it would be nice to see some new fighters coming up, like Raptors, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It's always exciting when the draft goes really deep and you get down into those mid-tier picks, right? But yeah, Houdini and Genie have really just been all over the place, and Sattler surprisingly as well. So, Ito, do you expect us to see both Houdini and Genie somewhere in the rosters?
Absolutely. I also, if looking back at how these players have drafted so far, I expect we don't see Yananga. Both these players have been trying to get that pick, and it's usually a trade of pick for Yanenga if that happens, but neither of these players seem to have that inclination towards Bigfoot.
Sure. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we're expecting that Yanenga gets banned out along with probably the usual suspects of
Yeah.
Medusa, Sherlock, Electra on the first round of the picks. And then if that happens, then I'm sure Bigfoot is going out in the second round as well, which would that already pushes you down into at least the high tiers, and then we'll go from there. So I believe the players are finished with their picks. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what the rosters are looking like here. Okay, so the first thing that jumps out to me is Chad did get Moon Knight, so he's got to be feeling pretty confident there. But I also know that Chad is a big Houdini fan, and that may be his new favorite, or at least one of his new favorite characters, and that is on Animal's side. So very interesting lineups here. Anar, do you think either of these sides are more favored towards the other?
It's actually, oh my God. I think I'm surprised to see Daredevil on Animal's side because, as we know, Chad is a great Daredevil player, but it also works in his favor because he knows how to play against him. And looking at the assignments, I can say maybe I don't know. Either of these matches can go either way, and I'm not 100% sure to say which sides will win.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the matchups could go either way. Ito, do you have any insight into these assignments?
Absolutely. I've practiced quite a few games with littleexpressionlessanimal, and I'm not surprised to see Engine picked and assigned on advantage. This is something he really likes to do. He's a really good Engine player. As much as I hate Engine, I have to give him credit for that. And on Solomon's mind, Engine is a very oppressive character.
Yeah, and into Dracula, that matchup can definitely go either way. I mean, both fighters have a very limited number of defenses, so if we see some aggressive play knocking those defenses out early, you might just catch them off guard and land some big undefended damage. But of course, InGen has his traps and workers and everything to play around, so it might be a little more tough for Drac to get in. And then Ashley, what do you think about the Game 2 Daredevil versus Achilles? I would put money on it that you and Chad have practiced that matchup before, if I had to guess.
I am sure we have. I do not have the same steel trap memory as Chad does, so I'm sure he could tell you play by play exactly how that game went. I'm just going to be honest, I don't remember all the way. I will say, I know like Chad feels good about Achilles. I think he wanted to also keep that away from Animal, so that could just be a fun matchup. I think, as with a lot of things, it can come down to when Pat dies, but I really do like offensive battle hardens in that matchup to hopefully just be recurring feints and just win in the exhaustion game with kind of an oppressive, aggressive Achilles. But again, you don't want to let Daredevil stay at too low of a hand count because you'll end up with full blocking Achilles sixes. So I think that'll be a really interesting game, maybe coming down to like fatigue and card draw at the end. So we'll see how that one goes, but I feel like Chad can pull that out.
Yeah, definitely. And then Game 3, we're looking at Houdini versus Moon Knight. And I know at the very beginning of this tournament, me and Chad were talking, and Chad told me that, hey, Moon Knight wrecks Houdini. So in my first game, my first match of pools, I went ahead and Houdini was on the other side, so I picked Moon Knight. And then they got matched up together, and I was feeling good. I'm like, all right, I got Moon Knight into Houdini. This is going to be an easy win. I had already won Game 1, so we're going into Game 2. And Houdini had advantage on Hanging Gardens, and I proceeded to get absolutely wrecked as Moon Knight. I think Houdini ended up winning that game at full health, and I was dead. And I was like, Chad, you told me that Moon Knight wrecks Houdini. What happened here? And I was kind of blown away, and I think that just speaks to the explosive volatility of Houdini. So although maybe it's generally Moon Knight favored, I think it could definitely go either way. And obviously both of these players are extremely talented in piloting their fighters to make it to this point, so anything can happen. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Game 1, which is going to be the InGen versus Dracula matchup. with InGen's advantage yet again on Solomon's Mine. So I think that's a great map for ranged, especially move 3. InGen should be able to attack Dracula nearly whenever he wants, really. In a single maneuver, he should be able to use the portals and reach Dracula. So Drac is really going to have to be careful of an aggressive InGen play with those limited defenses. But let's go ahead and take a closer look into the decks as well. We can pull up the InGen deck and see some of the key cards in here.
One thing to consider with this map is that these portals, obviously InGen can trap them, which makes moving around the map very hard for whoever is opposing him.
Right. Yeah, it definitely hinders the movement options that the portals generally tend to enhance for the players. But here we do see the InGen deck. And Anar, you want to run us by Muldoon?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, John. As Child of Prophecy would say, InGen is an absolute nightmare to play against. And he is very mobile, ranged fighter, move 3, and he has actually 9 sidekicks with call for backup, allowing him to place all of defeated InGen workers back, making total for psychic number at 9. And also, he had a lot of attacks, like they should be all destroyed, with during combat effect +1 for each trap adjacent to the opposing fighter, and also rending shots, which allows him to move around the opposing fighter into the traps. And the one downside of this deck is quantity of defenses. And as we all know, InGen has only 10 good defenses, meaning 3 leapaways, 2 copies of 500 more things that can hunt you, and also 3 copy of feints. And I also had a regroup, which we obviously don't count as the defensive options, but there is a lot of tools to attack every single turn and move around opposing fighter in the traps. And also, he has a lot of passes, and he can play also a fatigue game. Maybe we'll see it on this matchup. And I think that's it.
Yeah, definitely Muldoon plays a very solid fatigue game. The only concern, I think, would be that Dracula oftentimes can find lethals with his beast form if given enough time to, find the right openings. And so I think with a map like this, I personally am expecting an aggressive Muldoon, although there, of course, is that fatigue backup plan if the situation lends itself to that. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Dracula deck as well. And Ashley, you want to run us by the Dracula?
Sure, this is one I have played against more than I have played as, specifically last tournament against Baked Goods, but this is definitely a fun character. So Dracula's ability is that if there is a character adjacent to him at the start of his turn, he can bite them, meaning that character or the opposing fighter would take 1 damage and Dracula would draw 1 card. So that's helpful for him to be able to keep up his cards in hand, specifically for his beast form. So that's definitely his most impactful card. If it is not fainted or canceled, he can discard cards from his hand, and each card he discards will increase the value of that attack by 1. So that can certainly be a huge game-ending finisher if it gets down to that. Ambush, another great card. This is one that I think Chad would love to see pull out a call for backup. It will actually withdraw a card or discard a card from the opponent's hand randomly, and the boost value of the opponent's card will be added to this attack. So if Chad can get that off specifically into a call for backup or even a few other boost 3s, that's a great attack coming from Chad that also could take away some of InGen's defenses or some of his big attacks. So I think that could be an influential card in this matchup. Do My Bidding actually is a defense that allows Dracula to look at the opposing fighter's hand and choose which card he wants to have as the attack in that combat. So for example, if InGen played a5 and Dracula plays this 3, he could switch it out and make InGen attack with, for example, a feint or a cancel, and if he gets that out of his hand, it's a higher opportunity for Beast Form to go through. So also a big card in Dracula's deck. Look Into My Eyes actually changes the value of the opponent's card to its boost value instead of its printed value, which can help negate some big damage. And then Dracula does have 3 single health sidekick sisters who have a few schemes and attacks that they can play. Ravening Seduction actually lets you move the opposing fighter and move your sisters and deal 1 damage to the fighter or opposing fighter for each sister next to them. So if Chad can get good value out of his sisters, that will also just help him specifically maybe if he needs to deal damage to InGen or just take out some of those pesky sidekicks. So I think it'll be a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, both fighters definitely have the tools to deal with whatever their opponent is trying to do. So this is a classic matchup that I think was played a lot way back in the Premier tournament. I remember playing this one with Wandering Caretaker quite a bit. So can definitely go either way. But let's take a look at the map as well. So this is going to be played on King Solomon's Mine. And this is the new map from the Houdini vs. the Genie set, and it brings back the secret passages, as we see highlighted in those green highlights with the lock symbol. You can move from any of those spaces to another one of those spaces with the symbol as if they were adjacent. So we see this returning from the Baskerville Manor map, and it just makes it really hard to run away. Although the difference in this map in particular is the bottom right corner. If you're standing on the passageway, then you're blocking that off from the opponent moving through, and it's quite a ways around from that next closest passage, which is that plain red spot right there. So that's, I believe, 5 spaces to be able to get down there. So it's a lot bigger than it may appear at first glance, and especially with Muldoon using his traps and workers to clog up the map, it is going to be pretty difficult for Dracula to get in without using something like a mist form. As well as if you look at the top left of this map, there's the 2 passageways with the solo yellow spots, and there's only 1 connection from the very top left spot to the next one over. So if you put Muldoon in the very top left corner and you put a worker immediately to the right, then it's impossible for a melee fighter to attack your hero, being Muldoon. So you can really protect yourself well if you feel the need to in any particular situation to guard against something like an incoming beast form or an ambush. So I believe the players are set and good to go. So let's go ahead and jump into Vorpal board and see what happens in game 1. And I believe Animal was having a little bit of connectivity issues, so he is going to be playing with the camera off just to try to hopefully mitigate some of that.
Another interesting thing to consider in this matchup is that perhaps usually we see remote detonation being used as a pass, but when the sisters want to set up a Ravening Seduction, they have to group up, and in those cases, if you can take multiple sisters out with 1 remote detonation, it suddenly becomes a pretty good card.
Yeah, the remote detonation is definitely a sneaky card in this matchup. Whenever there's 1 health sidekicks involved, most of the times it is used as a pass, but, you know, actually using it for the effect can actually work out in matchups like this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Muldoon is especially tricky with the timer because you have so many sidekicks and so many decisions to make with positioning. You first have to decide whether or not you want to start your turn with a trap, much like the Genie has to decide if he wants to use his ability to discard a card. So you have to decide on your trap placement, and then once you maneuver, you just have so many moving parts that you have to position, and it definitely can eat away at your timer.
Mm-hmm. A very interesting thing to see is what kind of game we're going to see, because both of these fighters can choose whether they want to be aggressive or whether they want to play a passive game and use their passes to hopefully draw it out to exhaustion.
Yeah, definitely they have the versatility and the tools to play whichever, the situation calls for. And even more interesting is they can both pivot based on what their opponent is doing. So you might want to start off aggressive as InGen, and then, if things get flipped around, you might have to start playing more defensive.
That means Engine has to be careful with how many traps he's placing, because even if Drake isn't popping them now, he could pop them later to advance Engine's deck.
Yeah, they definitely start to become a liability the later on you go into the game if, the opponent can avoid them. And we do see Animal going to attack the sisters turn 1, so he values clearing them off the board as quickly as possible over knocking some of Drax's defenses out, which I think is the right call, because if you can keep Muldoon outside of those beast form lethal ranges by just keeping yourself healthy and avoid Ravening Seduction damage, I think you're in a much better position.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see the best sister is gone.
The best sister is indeed gone if you're, well, according to Baked Goods. I know some people might argue the sister tier list.
But yeah, because of the way the sisters were positioned, Expressionless Animal couldn't attack Drake that first turn. The sisters were blocking all of our access to the gray area.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Drac can definitely do that with the sisters, although unlike most one-health sidekick fighters, I think Drac a lot of times wants to protect the sisters more so than using them to protect him.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now this is a really interesting trap placement because Muldoon is nowhere near this spot physically, right? But they are in the same zone, which is really cool to see him. It's kind of like ranged traps almost.
Yeah.
This is part of the reason why he's so good in this map. He can just block off all these key areas from far away and chill in his tower and attack you from there. It's very interesting that Expressionless Animal was considering sending the workers through the secret passage and putting him next to Drac to attack. But he ends up deciding to go through the other side.
Ooh, this is a great defense by Chad here. Look into my eyes, gaining the boost value of the second shot, so bumping itself up to a 4, and second shot caps out at a potential 5. So full blocking that there.
Definitely what he likes to see with that interaction.
Yeah, and we all know that Dracula have only 12 defenses, and if InGen goes and attack every single turn, we will come to a place where Dracula is actually run out of defenses.
Definitely, and we've already seen 2 of them gone because the exploit was used on offense.
Right.
And with the 13 health is not a lot, so while we usually most fighters don't mind the trap damage that much, Dracula does not have enough health to continue taking these traps again and again. Especially if InGen is constantly harassing him.
Yeah, it's funny because normally when you think of abilities that do auto damage, you think Medusa, right, pinging at the start of each turn, or Dracula, but that requires adjacency. And you don't really consider Muldoon that much, but if you really think about it, he has 8 traps. That's potential 8 auto damage throughout the course of a game.
It's also a card draw, which is the scary part of that equation.
Yep.
Also, the more traps are stepped on, the more Drac feels comfortable in using his ability if one of these workers ever comes in to engage.
Yeah.
Interesting decision not blocking off the secret pathway. Instead going for the corner. There we see the remote detonation being used offensively.
Yeah,
to
smart
take out
play
the...
there.
Very smart.
Actually, yeah, so
actually,
he thought that the worker was in the same zone. The worker's actually not in that zone.
Yeah. He can still maneuver and do that if he wants. We're gonna see him do
Yeah, that is an excellent trap placement there for the remote detonation because it'll clear off the sister and hit Dracula for a damage at the same time, which is more than you ever expect to get, honestly, with a remote detonation.
Yeah. And keeps him at exactly 7, and having a max sign size is always good. You do want to try and push the tempo. It seems like that's his game plan so far.
And it looks like it is basically impossible for Drac to reach Muldoon right now, unless the sister sacrifices herself by maneuvering and boosting onto that trap on the bottom left, and then Dracula can follow suit right behind her and reach Muldoon. But that's a lot.
We're likely gonna see Dracula have to use Mist Form in order to get those Beast Form turns, respectively. Because otherwise, very interesting. That will kill off the sister as well, if I'm not mistaken. I believe the players missed it, but that would kill the sister as well.
Prey Upon only deals damage to opposing
Oh,
fighters.
opposing. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, thankfully.
Thankfully. Yes. I got confused because his ability can.
His ability can
do
ping
it
off
too.
the sisters. Yep.
Oh, we see a Doomite bidding. Oof. Good bidding, evading a good attack, but
No feints.
no feints, which is exactly what Expressionless Animals want to see.
Yeah.
We're probably going to see the leap away pulled out here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I think this is ideal for Animal because, like you said, Anar, no feints. That's a big deal. And the leap away, although it is one of your premium defenses, you still deal a damage and win the combat, so you're allowed to get away if you would like. Well, I mean, not... Well, yeah, you could either get away or you can push Drac further away.
I think Infant quite likes the position he's in, so we probably see Drac being pushed away. Because Engine is currently surrounded by traps and can just stay there as long as he likes.
True.
Well, we see him rush a bit to get that double attack off.
Yep. So Chad,
But
now
now
he's got the information knowing that Animal had wanted to attack with another They Should All Be Destroyed. And granted, he could have deduced as much, based on Animal's hand, but definitely got to be careful.
That's also, let's be honest, there's not much Drac can do against a 5-value attack right now. It is just going to hurt. Yeah, that's just going to be 2 damage over.
That does hurt. It's not what you want to feint.
Yeah, the only good option, quote unquote, is probably Look Into My Eyes, because that becomes a 4. So that's only 1 damage. Exploit also works the same way, but Drac's gonna take damage pretty much no matter what against that in this position.
Yep.
Because bidding could only pull out Rending Shot, which we saw. Sorry, could pull out nothing as we saw in hand, but just the Rending Shot. So let's see.
Yeah,
and
go ahead, Anar.
I was gonna say that we can see a very nice map coverage by Engine there, allowing him to stay up on that center space just for a whole game there, put out the traps and just fire off Dracula's defenses.
Yeah, that is a great position for Muldoon there. You're able to trap the passageway on the bottom right, as well as block off these choke points that lead to where Muldoon is standing. So being melee fighters, Drac is going to have a hard time getting in to attack Muldoon.
Yeah.
Sadly, we know he does not have the call for backup. He would have loved to play right there, get all his workers back, and push the initiative on Drac.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have it, so he's moving in, and he's considering a potential attack, maybe. This could just be the other They Should All Be Destroyed, which is another 5, which is very scary for Drac.
Yeah, although that would be the last one, right? He's already used 2 of those, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, one of them got bounced back.
Oh, that's right. It got bounced back. So here we see it over a feint again. Ouch.
Yeah. But
I think he has one more copy.
Yeah, one more.
He does have one more. But yeah, there's not much Drag can do against these high value attacks. Of course, Engine does not have that many of them, but we keep seeing Feints be gone, which means Rending Shot, for example, gives a lot of control over to Engine now every time he plays it.
Yep.
It also means there's the Shoot Her can't be fainted, which is going to probably be a 5 whenever Drac does come in. So using the Feints now can be scary.
Yeah, definitely not the interaction you want to be seeing if you're Chad. You want to be feinting the shooters and value blocking more so against the they should all be destroyed. So it's looking a little rough, although there is still one sister alive and all the workers are currently out of play, but call for backup definitely changes the whole outlook of this game very quickly.
And Engine games always hinge a bit on that card, similarly to how Genie requires the wishes. Muldoon does really need those call for backups.
Yeah, sometimes they're just buried deep in the deck, and Muldoon he drops a whole tier on the tier list because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that hurts. Drac must have just no defenses right now.
Or
Yeah,
could be going for a beast one, maybe, or
I would like to see
yeah,
Muldoon
maybe.
push Drac into a trap here.
Yeah, I would like to see the card as well. Or health left is not a lot. Probably a lot of red and a lot of yellow in Chad's hand right now. He must be a bit nervous.
Yep. As
hopefully
Freak
as-
likes to say in the Discord, he's Captain Condiment right now. Ketchup and mustard.
Ketchup and mustard. Hopefully more ketchup, because Baptism of Blood would have been really nice. Trying to get that health back up, but we don't see it, which means he might not have it. This is interesting. Chad thinking, where's he gonna run away to? With 3 movement, but Doom can get anywhere on this map. Especially as a range fighter, he can.
That's the
cover
thing.
pretty
Yeah,
much
that's
anything.
the killer right here. Is this map is just so good for a
Yeah.
ranged move 3. You can always hit basically
The
whenever you want to.
The only tough spot was at the green-gray area. If Chad had gone that way, but it doesn't. We do see him double maneuver and overdraw, which is very rough.
So
I would
Ashley,
have liked.
things are not looking good right now for Chad. But
No, they're not.
how do you think he's feeling right now? Do you think he's feeling the pressure, or do you think he's staying calm and he still has his eye on the win condition?
If I had to guess, this was the game he thought he would lose. So I don't think that it's necessarily really shaken his confidence, because I think he feels pretty good probably about the next 2 matchups. So because of that, I think he's probably okay. Obviously, it's to kind of get your butt kicked on the first one.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think because of Dracula's, some of his main cards, you never really can count him out, and Engine doesn't have a lot of defenses either, but I do think Chad will start having to press the aggression a little bit, just to kind of get some of that health taken care of, particularly where call for backup comes out. So we'll see if he can turn it around.
Yep. Yeah, you can. It's never over until it's truly over, till the health dial hits 0, especially with somebody like Dracula who can just find those beast form lethals out of nowhere at times. And if Muldoon were to go in for an attack and only have, let's say, a feint in hand for defense and throws some red card and Bidding pulls out the feint.
That's it.
Wow.
Wow,
That's
that's
easy.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, place the trap right next to him, and I was about to say,
All
they should not
right.
be destroyed. It's terrifying here.
There it is. Let's listen in on the players here.
Maybe I stepped on one trap on purpose and I ended in your zone when I was putting you at high hand count, so that double attack really hurt me.
Yeah.
But maybe I should have avoided that. But other than that, I feel like I played it as I should, trying to go for the long game, and I just wasn't seeing what I wanted. So much earlier to just kill your dudes so easily, because it's just like, rather than do this where it risks myself.
Yeah.
but I felt like I couldn't allow you to keep pestering with those because I still like didn't have defenses, and so I got to block with them if I do, and then I would have loved to dash there, or in any of those scenarios where I could have like dashed up to you to get some pings off. And
Yeah, I was afraid of those.
I never was able to attack you, and I think you can see why.
Yep.
I attacked one guy with this, so that's a defense that I used there. So maybe that was a mistake. However, I didn't have any garbage to like throw, so I didn't want to just double maneuver up to 7. And you had pinned me in so where you could have gotten a double attack off anyway. So this map was a really, really smart choice by you, I think.
Yeah, I think it's in a matchups where Muldoon wants to be aggressive. It's good for the same reason that it is for Genie, where you just can like no matter where you go, I can hit you. It's
and almost a single maneuver. I think you could hit me with a single maneuver almost everywhere. You just boosted to not end adjacent to me, which was nice. So yeah, the remote detonation play was off on my part too, but it didn't really matter that I had an extra sister. Maybe I could have like protected from where you could go to hit them, but this little trap really messed me up. So that was just really good because I couldn't really like put myself in green and kind of like protect because you could just go onto that spot and hit me. So really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for game 2 because
this should be a better game.
All right, well, that was quite the quick game 1, but like Animal said there at the end, this map, it's basically like it is for the Genie if you're Muldoon and you want to play aggressive, which in this matchup I think that's correct to do because of Drax's limited defenses. And sometimes, you know, Captain Condiment comes for us all. And as we can see, Chad's hand all full of red and yellow, no defenses in sight. So that's got to be a tough one. Anar, what do you think about that game and how it was played? Do you think Chad did the best he could with, you know, that poor card draw?
I just lost all of my channel points.
Oh! No, the channel points.
Yeah, and with that being said, I think Animal did a great job, attacked Dracula every single turn. That's actually what he needs to do due to Dracula's limited defenses. And we did see game ended up with ketchup and mustard in Dracula's hand. I think he played really nice, and what can Drac do on his turn? Maybe he can use 2 of his Revenant seductions to move Ingen to other side of the map, but it actually, I don't think it would happen because as we know, Dracula doesn't have any defenses, and if you play some cards from your hand, like Revenant Seductions, you don't draw anything from your deck. That's you're always considering about to draw a deck and maybe find some defensive options, or maybe just go for it and take a risk and play some games.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes you got to take the risk, right? Because if you just constantly double maneuver away, you kind of give a sign to your opponent that you don't have defenses, or at least not the best defenses, and that kind of gives them the signal to go on the offensive and really push that aggression because they can capitalize and catch you without the proper defenses, which is exactly what Animal did. So, I mean, I think he played it perfectly. He had the whole strategy planned out from the start with the map pick, and it was a fantastic map choice. And it turned what I would normally call a very 50-50 matchup into a heavily Muldoon favored game there. So as we saw with the final score being, 14-0 or -2 or whatever it was, I mean, that's a brutal start definitely for Chad. But he has been in this situation before where he's at, the highest level of competition in. He's made it to the stream finals in every single tournament that he's played in so far, so he definitely is no stranger to this kind of pressure. And so I don't think it's going to phase him much leading into game 2. Like you said, Ashley, I think he knows that was his game to lose, and he's going to be prepared to win the next 2 and take this match still.
I do think he could get in his head if it would have been a major misplay that would have lost him that game, but that's just one of those, the RNG gods were against you, and it's honestly, it feels a lot less oppressive to lose like that than it does if you really put yourself over on a misplay or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's a great point for the mental aspect of competition, right? Like if you know you messed up and it was your own fault that you lost, you feel terrible, and that definitely impacts your mental clarity moving forward. But I think I agree with you. I mean, there's not much you can do when you just don't draw literally any defenses, and so you just got to brush it off, say, you know, sometimes it happens, and you move on and you do your best in the next game. Speaking of which, the next matchup, we're going to be going into the Achilles versus Daredevil matchup. And this one is Chad's advantage this time. So the other one, Animal won on his advantage, which is usually expected in Arsenal. And so we're going to see if Chad can beat Daredevil with Achilles. Now, it is going to be played on Hanging Gardens, which is a great map for Achilles because it lets him get some additional damage over Daredevil's relatively mediocre defenses, unless, of course, Daredevil's playing at a low hand count, but then you run the risk of not having the proper defenses when you need them. So let's go ahead and take a look into the Daredevil deck and check out some of the key cards. And Ito, you want to run us by Daredevil?
Absolutely. Daredevil is one of the most unique fighters in Unmatched because his game plan is very different from everyone else's. His deck only has 22 cards, but the most key card is one that surprisingly is not in the key cards, which is Devil of Hell's Kitchen. Devil of Hell's Kitchen allows him to recur cards from his discard pile into his deck, and potentially, as long as it's not fainted, have an infinite deck. One of the cards that he's really going to be looking to recur a lot in this matchup is Take an E, which we see there. Not only is it a 3-value defense, which you can potentially blind boost if you're a low hand count, you also recover health equal to the boost value of a card you discard after combat. So while it does dig into your deck, it does effectively function as a better defense. But yeah, there we see Devil of Hell's Kitchen up on screen. We see the after combat effect. Shuffle this card in the top 4 cards of your discard pile into your deck. That is what Daredevil is going to be looking to get out often and try to keep his deck count as high as possible, because Achilles does potentially have up to 5 fates if he chooses to recover them with Battle Hardened. So there is a world where Daredevil gets 0 devils off. And that would be incredibly, that's game over. If Daredevil can't get his devils off, that's definitely his win condition.
Yeah, I agree. You need to play, with your cycle, and that's what his deck is all about. And Achilles being able to recycle those feints is going to pose a problem there. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Achilles deck so we can see some of these cards we were talking about. And Ashley, you want to run by Achilles?
Yeah, sure. Achilles is one of my favorite fighters, as well as Daredevil, actually, so this is just going to be a fun game to watch. Achilles starts out with his sidekick Patroclus, and when Patroclus is defeated, Achilles will randomly lose 2 cards from his current hand. From that time forward, he will get +2 to all of his attacks, so that is Enraged Achilles. So I think part of the game plan for Chad is just to figure out exactly when he wants Pat to die, because the earlier you let Pat die, obviously the more damage that your cards and your attacks are going to be doing, but you will also be going through your deck faster, because once Patroclus is dead, you will draw a card every time you win a combat, whether that's on offense or defense. So one of his big cards is under Achilles' helm. You can see that that's a 4 boost value, so if Patroclus is dead, that's very helpful for Achilles moving around the map. But if Pat is not dead, Achilles can play that card and swap places with Pat, so that Pat would take the damage that was intended for Achilles, so that can be helpful to avoid a big hit at times during the game, or if you want Patroclus to die. Pat himself has 4 specific Patroclus attacks that are both ultimately 5s if they're not fainted, and also deal Patroclus damage back to himself. So that's another thing that you can use, both to deal damage to your opponent, but also to help whittle Patroclus down for when you want to become enraged. Brothers in Arms, or the Handshake, will gain you an action if Patroclus is still alive, and if he's dead, obviously that becomes just a blank 6 attack, so that is a lot of damage over the top. Your throw will deal 2 damage to your opposing fighter. in your zone. So that's very helpful for closing out games. If you need to, you can also this next card, Battle Hardened, to recur those if you need. So Battle Hardened will actually let you choose a card in your discard pile and shuffle it back or put it back in your hand, excuse me. So that can definitely help decide either if you want to bring back more feints to try to keep the devils from going off. If you need to bring back another Battle Hardened, you can actually cycle those for a little while just to keep cards if you need, or bring back spear throws to finish out a game. So the Achilles can definitely be a versatile fighter. He's a brawler, hard hitter, has a few movement effects on defense or on some of his versatiles that can help him either chase around the map or get away from double attacks or whatever he needs. So definitely a fun fighter. I think this will be a really good matchup.
Yeah, definitely. This one could go either way. It's really cool, too, actually, that these are two of your favorite fighters that you get to see fight against each other. So I guess on one hand, you're going to be happy no matter what, but on the other, you're going to be sad that one of them lost. Although
Yeah.
I'm sure you're rooting for Achilles here, seeing as that's Chad. So got to root for the husband,
That's
right?
true. You got me.
All right, let's take a look at the map they're going to be playing on. This is the Hanging Gardens. And Anar, you want to first of all tell us what makes Hanging Gardens so special, and then maybe tell us a bit about what you think, what kind of impact this map is going to make here in the matchup?
Yeah, absolutely. As we know, Hanging Gardens introducing us a high ground bonuses, which we can see +1 bonuses on some of lines between the spaces. And when the fighters is above those bonus, he gains +1 to all of his attacks, which can be very helpful against some fighters like Daredevil. And also, we can see that the first player have a slight of advantage over the second player, because as we can see, the second player is starting just above the high ground. And if first player goes and, boosts his maneuver to reach the second player starting position, he can hit from the high ground. And also, this map works in Achilles' favor, I would rather say, because we know there is 2 spaces between the, which gives him center space, just one under the trizone space, and one of the right side of it, which allows the fighter like Achilles with a boost 3 reach everywhere on the board.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be crucial because once Patroclus dies off, Achilles becomes very one-dimensional. He is very threatening, right? He can definitely close out games pretty quickly after that, but he does become one-dimensional, and so you do need to have a relatively tight map where you can reach your opponent to make attacks as needed instead of being forced into double maneuver turns on a larger map. So I think this is a great map pick by Chad. It's going to help him out both getting extra damage by the high ground, especially seeing as Daredevil has to approach in order to get his cycles off with the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. So he's going to have to end adjacent to Achilles, and Achilles will get extra damage from high ground, as well as this map being relatively tight if you are standing on center stage. So I think it's looking pretty Achilles' favorite if I had to put money on it, but let's go ahead and jump into Vorpal, and we will see what happens.
Something I would love to see turn 1 from Achilles in this map always is a boost with Pat into a Pat attack, because that means if you faint, you take the damage. If you don't faint, it's gonna hurt.
Yes, and
yeah.
I think especially the Day of Your Doom, right, which is the one that actually bumps its value up, that one is sometimes harder to get damage off with. So I think when you can do it on the high ground, that's an ideal situation. So
And we see exactly that. We see Pat boosting in and going for the hit.
yeah, we'll see what the attack's going to be. It also could be just a Brothers in Arms, right, to be a 5-value
Brothers in
attack
Arms
with
is very
action
good here,
gain.
Yeah, you always want to start an attack from the high ground on this map.
Definitely, especially against solo fighters because they don't have any sidekicks to block it. So you always want to take advantage of that extra damage while you can.
It's interesting to see Achilles heal discarded because, well, in that card in particular can be very bad in some matchups. Daredevil doesn't have any attacks that really get over it. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ito. The Achilles heal is actually really good in this matchup, unless, of course, Daredevil's playing at a low hand count and can use his blind boost ability to boost over the heal for the action gain. But this is a big hit. I think this is actually ideal for Chad. It's exactly probably what he wanted. He dealt 3 damage to Daredevil and got Pat down to 2 health very quickly.
Very interesting. It's interesting to see Daredevil go for that as well. I'm wondering, killing Pat this early is very risky. But now, if even whenever you go for Devils onto Achilles, you have to think, is this the home? Because if it's the home, Pat is just gonna die, and then game gets a lot more dicey from there.
Yeah.
It is interesting because Daredevil can output so much more damage if he is sitting at a low hand count. I do think Chad, like doing that first action attack, obviously gets off a lot of damage, but you put Daredevil down to that threshold where he can now boost his attacks. So it's just a fascinating kind of give and take, especially when you do start with the first action attack on you. Onto Daredevil is you do put him down at that threshold where it's easy for him to boost if he wants to. So I think that is kind of a fascinating side part about this. But I think on this high ground, you definitely do need to take that first action attack.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it's interesting. We see Pat willingly killed off by Animal here. So it looks like you were talking about, Ashley, with the blind boosting, right, to bump up your defenses. Animal seems to be okay with playing at that low hand count, given that he used a pass scheme, right, the through adversity, and then attacked Pat on his first turn, when he could have simply just done a double maneuver away. So
this means Animal probably has a couple of defense in his hand, because otherwise I don't think you're too comfortable to go for this. But an interesting thing now is that without the blind boost always has a degree of risk to it, because you could always hit something with a feint, which only has a +1. And even with a +2, like the 6s from Achilles aren't easily blocked. And Achilles does just have to run away, and Daredevil is forced to, bring his hand count up. So this is going to be a very interesting game from now on.
I do think Chad would like to see Animal sitting at a higher hand count, just that he is able to get his damage over the top. Obviously, if he's blind boosting, he's going through his deck quickly, so Chad could just play the exhaustion strat kind of from the very beginning and just feint when he does get attacked, which is an option. So direction he wants to take that.
Yeah, it really could go either way at this point. It's so early in the game, and Achilles, even though he does tend to exhaust out more quickly than his opponents when he's enraged, he is leading in the deck count currently, and he does have 2 spear throws as passes and potentially could recur them twice with the Battle Hardens for 2 more, and that's also 8 auto damage. So if you're looking at the fatigue game at this point, I think it's really too early to tell, because that could definitely go either way.
The fatigue game against Daredevil pretty much always depends on your feints. If you manage to feint Devils, you're fine. If you don't manage to feint Devils, he's always winning.
Exactly.
Yeah, but one thing to note, Achilles had the option to recur his feints in this matchup.
Yep, that can definitely make it hard on Daredevil, especially with this blind boosting. He wants to blind boost with the ability, so he has a bigger value block, and then the take a knee is also going to discard a card off the top. So if Chad keeps up the pressure, Daredevil's deck can definitely deplete pretty quickly. And if you happen to hit Devils or Breathers, things get a lot more spicy.
And whenever you use a Breather, you are signaling that you only have potentially 1 defense in hand, which is very scary. Because if you pop deck another attack, game's looking rough, because Achilles is just going to be outputting insane amounts of damage with Pat dead this early.
So it does look like Animal chose not to boost his defense. He only used the Boxer for his heal after combat. He took 3 and then healed for 2, so that was a net of 1 health for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting. I'm surprised he decided not to blind boost it. I imagine that was the strategy he was going for, but I'm curious to see what he does next.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision. Maybe he was concerned about the deck counts, but I don't know if it's actually the concern, because at the end of the day, we know that Achilles have plenty of value attacks, which can be very painful for him.
Yeah, and Achilles is probably gonna draw, even if when you see the 4, unless you hit a 3 boost, Achilles is drawing. So the chances that he doesn't draw are pretty low.
Yeah, right.
Maybe he was trying to secure that Achilles going further down in hand count, but in deck count, sorry. But we'll see how this progresses.
It's interesting to note from Chad's end here, he did choose to put himself only one maneuver away from Daredevil. So if Daredevil chooses to go into attack, unless he basically wastes a boost, he will not be able to, at a low enough hand count to boost his attack.
I feel like Chad wants Daredevil to come in at this point, or else I don't think he would position in a spot like that, just a single maneuver away.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, it was a great position by Chad, because if Daredevil wants to attack him and adjacent to Achilles, he can move around and attack him from the high ground.
I feel like Chad is playing, I don't want to say it too early, but maybe a little too passive here, at least for my liking, because he does have the deck advantage currently, but that can definitely change, and Daredevil has a lot of passes as well. But Animal is going in. He wants to stay at that low hand count, as he's showing right here by the way he's playing.
If the thing is, maybe Chad is counting that by playing at this low hand count, the chances that breathers are getting rid of or devils are getting rid of is much higher, because we're going to see a lot of blind boosts. There we see one potential devil gone.
Yeah, that was a risky blind boost by Animal. I feel like he doesn't necessarily need the damage output. He just needs to, stay ahead in the deck count. And he just lost a pass and a potential devil cycle right there, which could mean trouble down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. As a Daredevil player, I don't love that.
Yeah, no, that seemed rough. Only to get 1 damage. Maybe if you're getting more than that, but only 1 doesn't seem like enough.
We're gonna see another blind boost probably here, and this could always be a devil's, and well, it's a taking knee, which is not what you want to see. This is, I mean, it's better than seeing a devil's for sure, but
that was first action as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really surprised the Animal even went in on that previous turn, given the situation, right? He attacked with one of his defenses, it got feinted. Then he defended with a feint against Angry Achilles, which is never what you want to do. And now he's getting another attack thrown at him, which his last card in hand better be a defense. Otherwise, I think he would have been definitely better off just playing it safe, staying back, and forcing Achilles to approach.
I can see that the double attack coming. Oh, yeah. That's it.
I mean, good read by Animal if he's blocking the second one. Yeah, that's a good read at least. I'm curious if he wants to take the damage or if he wants to blind boost. Son of a Boxer only triggers if you lost combat, so he can take 2 damage and deal 2 back, or can blind boost and potentially not deal damage but not take damage himself.
Yeah, these are the really tricky decisions you have to make as a Daredevil player when it comes to, am I worried about my health total or am I worried about my deck total? And I think that's a really tough call to make. Ashley, being an avid Daredevil player yourself, what do you think you'd like to see Animal do in this situation?
I think he needs to take the damage. I think you want the damage to go through onto Achilles, and so if you boost for a 2 and now all of a sudden you didn't lose the combat, Achilles doesn't take any damage. I also think with where you're at right now, you can't afford to lose a breather, you can't afford to lose a devil. Like, you're kind of getting to the end. Well, not to the end quite, but you run out of things quickly as Daredevil. Your deck just goes so much faster. So I think I would have not boosted that scene.
Oh, wow.
Oof. Well, that's kind of ideal though.
Yeah.
In some ways, for sure. Yeah, I do think that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't love using the feint once Achilles is angry. It's only you take 1 less damage and you deal 2. I think that's probably the best thing he could have seen right there.
That is true. You get a favorable trade there, only taking 1 yourself and dealing 2 back.
Do notice that when he came into attack, he attacked with a grappling hook. So if Achilles would not have feinted, he would not have been able to get double attacked, which I think was probably his ideal. But the feint came out, so obviously he was next to him.
I think as Achilles, you're trying to feint everything now.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. But one thing to mention, if you go and attack with the devil into the feint with a low hang count, you will be able to deal plenty of damage over the
Mhm.
Achilles feint. You can consistently hit with four damage every time when you boost it.
That's a
That's
great
really
point,
cool.
Anar, and that I think gives us a little bit of insight into Animal's win condition here. His overall macro strategy, I like to call it, for this matchup in particular. I think he wants to deal the damage to Achilles, um, which I don't know. I'm not a Daredevil player myself. My gut instinct would tell me that you'd rather play just defensive and try to outlast Achilles and fatigue him, but again, I'm no expert in this matchup, so we'll see if it ends up paying off in the long run. There's still a decent amount of healing, and there's still potential cycle for Daredevil.
I'm sorry, did Daredevil moved 5 from the green spot?
He
Uh,
was in the
one,
pink, correct?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he moved one too many, I believe.
He moved one more additional space, I guess.
Yeah, he could have. No,
Didn't he
actually,
boost? Did he boost, or did he use
No.
use
No,
through
he used
adversity?
it through adversity to move for 4.
Maybe
Or was
he,
it boost his attack?
Oh, he boosted with through adversity, maybe.
Okay.
That would
but he
explain it, yeah.
should draw another card, maybe.
I think he did it right. He was in the pink, right? Right here in
Yeah, he
the
maneuvered.
third player space
He had 0
maneuver.
cards. Yeah, it's fine.
You can do it. Yep, he can make it there.
He maneuvered and then boosted
Maneuver
with through
3,
adversity.
and then adversity.
Yeah, he didn't use it. He boosted with it,
Yeah, all
which
right.
is more. If you're just using it to get away, maneuvering is more movement than using it. But yeah.
Wow, Daredevil down to
interesting
3
game.
health so quickly. Well, both spears are gone at least, so in order to get one back, there has to be a combat interaction with a battle hardened. So that does give Daredevil a chance to potentially get some healing with a defensive take a knee, and into hopefully a devil cycle for Daredevil's sake.
Defensive
Only one
taking knees
taken.
is a very scary place to be when Achilles can hit you with a 6, because you will die on damage before your healing can go off.
That is true, unless he's staying at the low hand count like he is currently, and then he can
Yes,
blind
true.
boost. But that's a lot of
That's
cards
true,
off
and I
your
think
deck.
Chad is aware of that, so that's why he's choosing to overdraw and wait. He knows that Daredevil's going to have to come to him eventually because of how low hand count how low in deck.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to imagine Chad does have a feint in hand. If he's playing this way, you have to imagine that he's ready to feint something and then maybe attack with the battle hardened and get something back.
Yeah,
That's
and
hopefully what we'll
honestly,
see
with
here.
all of the adversities gone, only 2 breathers left, and there's a 5-card difference in the deck counts and a massive health lead by Achilles. Achilles can literally just be super stubborn and refuse to move that high ground space until Daredevil comes in for an attack, and then Chad's going to feint it, and he's going to punish with what probably will be a lethal blow.
We see Breather taking back Taken E, which I think is smart because it's the only way you stay alive.
Yeah.
But this is 4 cards in hand, which
Yeah.
means Daredevil can blind boost. If Chad has a 6, this is game.
Yeah, things are not looking
Chad had
good.
a 6 in hand. There's no way Daredevil can't block for 4. So
Yeah, I think this is over.
as long
Well-
as no 6s. Wow.
No 6s.
Or maybe he's
Yeah, a
hyper
six
focused on his win condition
could be.
currently, which is just let's wait until Daredevil approaches. We're going to feint it and we're going to smack him, which I think is viable as well. I think it'll
Yeah,
be fine
but
either
that-
way.
That could have been a miss lethal, maybe.
Could have been. But knowing Chad and how good he is at endgame scenarios,
Yeah.
I would highly doubt it.
Yeah, he probably doesn't have another 4 in hand, which is a bit sad because he would have liked to end it there, of course. I think you throw out a feint every time here, right? And then attack with a battle hardened and get it back. If you
Well, I don't
really
know that
want
he
it back.
necessarily, as long as he does have a 4 in hand, I don't think he cares what he defends with, and he doesn't care if it's a devil either.
Well, it could be a Taken E, which heals.
True. You do
for
want
sure.
to feint if you have it. I think there's no reason not to feint if you have
There's
it here.
reason
You
not to feint,
always.
Yeah, you're pretty safe to use feint there.
Yeah.
It
This
also
is-
stops moving from grappling hook.
Yeah, we see the feint. It's a devil's, which
Yep.
is only 2 damage, but I don't think he cares at this point. I think he just wants to kill Daredevil.
And hit him with a 6 from the high ground could end the game right now.
Yep. This should be the last attack.
It could be a 7 as well.
Yeah.
If this is a 6, that would have been a miss lethal, which is kind of funny. But you know, if he's winning anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much.
Yep.
I think Daredevil should have boosted his last maneuver.
Yeah, I
This would
agree,
also-
Anar, because then you could be in a situation where you can blind boost your defense and live.
Can he?
Oh,
Why-
wow.
Oh. Well, the high ground.
So yeah, no 6.
No, it is a 6 with
That-
the high ground, so that is lethal.
Yeah, but
1, 2, 3.
yeah, but I meant no natural
He
6s
had the
in his
feint.
hand.
Yep, no 6s.
Yeah.
That's a lot of purples.
That's a lot of
Woo,
purple.
Both battle hardeneds are faint. He was chilling.
Yeah, let's take a listen in on the players, see what they have to say.
So that I could just hit you for 2, put you down to 1, and then if you ever had to approach me again, I'd have my Wily. But I was actually worried about you playing this first, and I didn't faint, so I throw this. So I take 1. I don't care about that, but then you know you might heal a lot, and then I'm in trouble because I don't have a way to kill you then. But then I saw that you were at the hand count you were, so then I was like, oh, I'm safe to faint here and throw.
Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, I was because you would have had to boost at the end of your previous turn, and then at the start of this maneuver too, to get down the hand count to boost your devil if you wanted, or at least to boost
or at least 1 just for the beast defense, so I can stay alive.
Yeah. What are the boosts on top of your deck? I'm curious.
I had a devil left. I mean, I had the. This is my hand, so.
Oh wow, you were
I didn't have any feints left. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it would have been at least at 2.
No.
Wow, that was another relatively quick game there, with some Achilles beatdown going on Daredevil there. I mean, Ashley, are you surprised at that result?
Can't say that I am. I think a lot of Daredevil is so fun, and some people love him, some people hate him, but it takes a lot of tact to like make sure that you know you have to win in every matchup, and I think it's just very hard to do. So I think obviously Chad is a super skilled player who plays his own bit of Daredevil, and definitely did a lot last tournament, and that rode that for a while. So I think just with Chad's knowledge of Daredevil, as well as just Achilles being a bruiser, I think that one's kind of rough to win up from the Daredevil side. So I think that's kind of the result I expected.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the map pick. I think that really swings it in Achilles' favor. What would, otherwise be a relatively even matchup. I think Achilles he loves the high ground, and that was pretty brutal for Daredevil. I mean, Ito, what are your thoughts on that game? Do you think Daredevil could have done something different to, have a better shot? Or was that just, it happens?
I'm gonna be very honest here. I did not like Daredevil's game plan. I think
The damage.
I don't think you want to go for a kill with damage here in this matchup. I think killing 18 health is a lot to chew through. I don't think that's the correct win condition to go for. You can get it, as we saw that the game was close, relatively close. But I would have liked to see him play more defensively and go maybe for a bit of the exhaustion game and those mind games that come with fainting correctly. Put the mental pressure to speak on Chad instead of on himself to keep pushing his luck, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think just killing Pat so early, like you need to leave Pat alive for a while so Achilles can't hit you so hard. It does mean that you'll have to deal with the Pat attacks, but let him die slowly and then kill him maybe with a devil that Chad doesn't feel like fainting at the end of his rope. But I think killing him too early, you just can't keep up from Achilles.
Yeah, and that's a great point you guys bring up about, you didn't like the strategy that Animal chose. And that's the weird thing about Unmatched is like, if he's trying to go and play for damage, maybe he made plays correctly with that in mind. But your macro strategy, right, your overall win condition definitely can influence how successful you're going to be in a matchup. Because if you have the wrong game plan going into it, well, you're going to keep playing towards that game plan, and things are just not going to go your way if that's the wrong game plan. So this game requires extensive matchup knowledge to be successful, especially at this high level. You really need to have a deep understanding of each individual matchup, and it's very hard if you haven't played the matchup before, even one time. I'd say playing a matchup one time gives you so much information for the future. For next time you play it, you learn so much. But if you've never played a particular matchup and you have to run up against it in tournament, against players of this caliber, it's tough. It's really tough because you probably won't have the right win condition in mind, and your play can definitely suffer because of it. So that was a bit of a tough loss by Daredevil, but Anar, we're going into game 3. I mean, they're 1-1. Do you think how much do you think the mental game is gonna play a role in how their play is in game 3?
Yeah, I mean, both of the players are very high tier players, I would say, and I hoping that outcome of the last game won't influence Animal so much, and he will able to just come in and play Houdini as Ito showed us into the last games. Yeah, as we know, Houdini is a very, very, versatile hero, and he will actually have enough chance to beat Moon Knight as well.
Yeah, definitely he has a chance, but like you said, Animal has got to just shake off the loss and move on and focus on game 3 and forget about game 2, right? Like there's no use beating yourself up over a loss or any misplays or anything. You just got to stay focused and play the best you can in each individual game. So with that said, let's take a look. We're going to be seeing game 3 is going to be Houdini versus Moon Knight. And it all comes down to this, and it's the neutral game. So it looks like Chad picked the map being the raft, and Houdini got the position pick. So Animal is going to choose to go first or second. And now I have to imagine that Houdini is going to choose to go first, because I think that's always the case, so you can get an early jump on Moon Knight in terms of hopefully you can catch him without defenses, open up with a set the stage, and hit with a big reveal early before Moon Knight has a chance to maneuver around and get better positioning or find those defenses, the optimal defenses. So I have to imagine Houdini's going first, and Moon Knight chose the raft though, and I know from personal experience that Chad really loves T-Rex Paddock for Moon Knight in just about every matchup. So Ashley, has he talked to you at all about his map choices with Moon Knight? Like, are you surprised to see the raft?
I am a little bit. Now, I know because of Houdini's movement of ability to move his opponent, I think I've maybe learned from Bryden and Edo that he doesn't want to end up pinned maybe by Houdini and Bess in the back of the pit. So it's possible that there was that in his mind when he chose this. It's also possible that Raptor Paddock was banned, but I think he typically likes to also take Moon Knight to Rex Paddock. I would not have anticipated. I wasn't sure who picked this map when I saw it, because it wasn't one that Chad's really talked to me much about. So I do think that the possibility of the scheme token to discard your hand and draw 3, if Houdini really combos him down and he is a super low hand count, there's the ability to maybe use that, as well as knowing that Houdini's going to have to approach you in this matchup, so Chad might be able to take advantage of the versatile attack or defense buffs.
Yeah, I think honestly those are the key right there. Like you mentioned, the versatile tokens, I think that would be the reason to choose the raft over Rex Paddock. And it looks like I did get some info behind the scenes. It looks like Rex Paddock was the map ban. So I don't know if Animal has maybe heard Chad talk about that map before. Maybe if he watches my YouTube videos, the matchup of the month, I'm sure he has heard Chad talk about how much he loves Rex Paddock, especially with a fighter like Moon Knight. So it might have been a little bit of undercover work going in there from Animal and banning Chad's favorite, and Chad had to revert to a secondary game plan being the raft. But let's take a closer look at the Houdini deck here. And Ito, I think you're kind of famous for Houdini at this point with these crazy upset victories you've been getting with him, so I'll let you take it away here.
So I'm just one really quickly going to comment on this matchup. This is a matchup that saw a lot of play during ladder season 11, I believe. I played it quite a few times. It was about a 50-50. Position being in favor of Houdini definitely matters because Houdini always wants to build his end up. These are not my words, these are someone else's, but Houdini is a bit of a scumbag. Um, we He can always find these openings and absolutely exploit them. And we see this with his cards as well. We have Set the Stage, which is possibly one of the most key cards in this deck, especially in a matchup like this one, because you get to look at your opponent's hand and choose a card for them to discard. This will almost certainly always be a defense or a scheme that is critical to your opponent's game plan. In this particular matchup, you always try to get rid of the healing or feint if you really want to go in. Then we see Big Reveal, which of course is the centerpiece of Houdini's game plan, which is allows him to boost his attack twice and potentially get it up to a 9, and then take one of those cards back. Then we have Sleight of Hand, which is lets him check for defenses essentially, lets him check what's he playing. If he's playing a 2, for example, which Khonshu often likes to play, the two value defense that goes 2 back, like Insanity. Not Insanity, but totally same thing to do. If you see that, you switch in the Big Reveal, deal 7 potentially, and suddenly Moon Knight is looking worse for wear. Of course, you always have Misdirection to get that chip damage in and get Moon Knight up to those lethal ranges where a bad Big Reveal can just end the game. One of the other very key cards that we don't see here because it's a bit of a weird one is And the Beautiful Bess, which its boost streak allows you to gain an extra action, which is very important. Thank you, production, for putting it on screen. It's very important in this matchup because you never want to end adjacent to Moon Knight or Khonshu, ideally. Of course, because Moon Knight can potentially hit you with an I'm Not Real and switch into Khonshu and then hit you very hard. Or, of course, Khonshu attacking you is always brutal because Houdini does lack the defenses to deal with Khonshu's damage. So this becomes a very interesting game of Houdini trying to try to take as much damage as possible without it being lethal, potentially taking some really big attacks and defend it in order to hit back hard. So it turns into a very careful balancing act between finding your combo and keeping your combo pieces and staying alive.
Yeah, and that's definitely just made even more difficult by the different Moon Knight forms. How, Khonshu is incredibly scary with Houdini not having the biggest value blocks, and then Mr. Knight getting that extra defense buff. So Houdini probably wants to try and go in during the Moon Knight form for his big attacks, but if he only, tries to stick to that, then he's a little more telegraphed. And so there's a lot going into this matchup. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Moon Knight deck. And Anar, you want to run us by Moon Knight?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much. So Moon Knight is a great example of a well-designed deck. It's a great example of a really tempo-based fighter, which has 3 different forms. So the first form is a Moon Knight, very mobile, allows you to hop up to 2 spaces at the beginning of your turn. So we have Moon Knight have second form, Khonshu, aggressive form, attacking form, which gives you additional +2 on of all of your attacking cards. And Mr. Knight is a defensive form, which gives you additional +1 to all of your defenses. So all of your game plan is to set up your center stages with the Moon Knight, and his mobility helps you to do this. Hit hard with the Khonshu, and actually when you hit up with the Khonshu, you as a melee fighter, you end up adjacent to opposing fighter, and then you switch to Mr. Knight defensive form, which gives you additional +1, which is really nice for having some defensive options. And also Moon Knight's deck have a lot of versatile cards, which gives him a lot of defensive and attacking options. And running through these decks, we have Fist of Khonshu, which allows you to move around the opposing fighter And also one of the key cards in his deck, which isn't displayed yet. I mean, that's the part I like. And it's a card which gives you an option to draw 3 cards from your opponent's deck. Yeah, thank you so much. So after combat, if you want to combat, you may look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and discard one of them, which can be brutal in those matchups like against Udini, and you can dump up his big reveals, or maybe set the stages, or maybe some heal cards, key cards, and so on. So this is a great card, and of course you love to see this card not be fainted. He had plenty of 4 value cards, I'm Not Real, which gives him opportunity to switch forms faster than it actually goes, and also Good Enough for Us, which can be a great defense as the Mr. Knight, or also a good attack as Khonshu. And also, we know that the Moon Knight is a solo fighter, and he might be struggling against fighters with a multi-psychics. That's why he had Travelers of the Night, this scheme which allows him move around the board, moving through opposing fighters and also gain in action. And as we know, Raft, besides being a map for 4 fighters, and if you're familiar with my Sensei's videos, so this scheme allows Khonshu to reach everywhere and gain an action. So that's why this is a key card in this matchup as well.
Yeah, very well said, Anar. Let's take a closer look at the raft, which you just mentioned. Travelers of the Night being able to move up to 4 through opposing fighters means you can't really body block very effectively with your sidekicks. And there are many spaces on this map where you consider them center stage, and you can reach every other spot with that Travelers of the Night. So this is a fantastic map for Moon Knight. And I know you had mentioned your sensei in our, speaking of baked goods, who made his video on his Bullseye video with map positioning and talking about center stage, because in relation to Bullseye, you want to find those spots so that you're able to attack everywhere without having to maneuver. And the same idea applies to Travelers of the Night, because Travelers moves 4 spaces, and then you are attacking adjacent to you into that 5th space, which would be the same as it would be for Bullseye's counting for his range. So finding those center stage spots is very important, especially for Moon Knight, you know, since you want to play the Travelers on those Khonshu turns and get your double attacks in while you have that extra damage buff. So the raft is very good for Moon Knight in that regard, but it could also be relatively good for Houdini, because he can warp back and forth across, because although this map is tight from the center, it's pretty far away from end to end. As you can see, the starting spaces are, I believe it's 7 spaces you have to hit or move to be able to attack turn 1, so that's very far. So if you can jump back and forth easily as Houdini from end to end, you might give Moon Knight a little bit of trouble if he hasn't taken center stage. And also, of course, there's the items to consider. There are 2+1 versatile item tokens in this map, as well as 1+2. And then for the scheme tokens, they're not nearly as powerful as the ones on Hell's Kitchen that we saw earlier today, but we do have the security camera, which lets you look at the opponent's hand and draw a card. So it's not necessarily a pass, but you do get hand knowledge, and that can be very important in a matchup like this, where you might want to find out if Houdini has those big reveals, right? Or there's the electrified floor, where you just deal 1 damage to each fighter in your zone. That does include yourself. So there's no 1 health sidekicks to worry about on this map, so that's not really a concern. But Khonshu can pop the electrified floor for a straight up pass and additional auto damage if anybody else happens to be in the same zone with him when he uses it. So that's something to keep in mind. And the last scheme token being the secret documents, which was mentioned before, where you discard your whole hand and you draw 3 cards. Now that might seem rough, but if you don't have any cards in your hand to discard, well, you just get a free draw 3. so that can definitely help you out in the hand count if you're being aggroed down by the opponent. So the items always make a big difference in any matchup, and this will be no exception. I especially expect the versatile item tokens to be attempted, at least, to be used by Moon Knight on defense to save himself from those big Houdini burst attacks like the big reveal. But I gotta ask you guys before we go into this. This is game 3. It all comes down to this. So Ashley, who you got your money on in this game?
Oh man, hubby all the way. I know he loves this matchup. He loves Moon Knight. Great Moon Knight player, also very familiar with Houdini. So I think he just that works to his advantage in how to play against him, similarly to the Daredevil matchup. And I'll put all my channel points on him.
All right. How about you, Anar? Who you got in this game 3?
I'm betting all my channel points as well on Chad.
All right. And you, Ito?
Look, I do like the Moon Knight side, but I am a Houdini believer. So I'm gonna give it to Houdini because there's that X factor where he can just take a game from out of nowhere.
Yep, that's definitely incredibly threatening, and we'll see what happens. I think I got to go with Chad here. Again, more so just because he is the reigning champion. We practice together a lot, and if there's one thing I know, it's do not bet against Chad's Moon Knight. So I'm very excited to see what happens, though. So let's get over into Vorpal Board and see who wins game 3.
I don't like how much focus it brings to it.
And as expected, we're going to see Houdini starting first here. Now, even though normal fighters would have to boost and move 7 spaces, Houdini can just teleport. So that the wide starting spaces don't affect him at all if he wants to open up with a, set the stage into big reveal, big opening turn.
I'm curious if he mulliganed, because if he did a mulligan, there is a chance Houdini does a Houdini thing.
True.
Which, you do a beautiful bass into a 4-man X trick into who knows what, and all of a sudden, wow, you're at 10 health.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here we go.
We are going to see set the
We're
stage.
seeing it.
So that...
Houdini kept Moon Knight mulligan.
Oh
That is,
my
ooh.
gosh.
That's defense. Chad laughing.
Wow. And he mulliganed into this.
Yeah, wow, that's a good mulligan.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. 20 versatile cards into a Moon Knight's deck.
I would like to see potentially like a 4-man neck. You can still get a little cheeky if you like do a 4-man neck trick, a flourish with a beautiful bass boost. There are some angles you can find as Houdini to do some crazy stuff, but we'll see if Houdini wants to go in or not, knowing this information.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing too, is you get to boost and see the hand before you even decide where you want to go with your ability. So it looks like Houdini is unfazed. He's going to go for the attack anyways, even though he knows Chad has a handful of great defensive options.
This is very interesting, because if this is a 4-man next trick, face the Khonshu. Yeah, that is exactly
Good call out by Chad. Yep.
Good call out. Yeah, that's why I was mentioning the flourish boosted, potentially with a beautiful bass to keep that action gain train going, but unfortunately that probably comes to the break on that.
Yeah, it definitely gives Chad some breathing room, which is all you need as Moon Knight, right? You just need to not be concerned about taking massive damage or getting into lethal ranges so that you're able to make the most of your Khonshu turns when they come, because they only happen every 3 turns, right? Unless you're attacking with I'm Not Real to cycle faster. So you really just got to make the most of those. And if you're in a situation where you don't have, let's say, any defenses in hand and it's a Khonshu turn, I mean, that's a really tough position to be in, because you got to decide, do I go in and make the most of my Khonshu turn and get the damage while I can, but then I leave myself defenseless, or do I just double maneuver and try to dig for defenses, and that's wasting your Khonshu turns. So it's just really tough. Looks like they were just trying to figure out positioning there. Big hand disparity, though, here for Houdini being up in the hand count. So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see him go for some more aggression, even though he's going into Khonshu. So Anar, do you think we're going to see Houdini take the aggressive route here, or is he going to just kind of play it safe, try and get as far away from Khonshu as possible?
Oh, well, it's a hard question anyways, but looking at the hand advantage over the Moon Knight, and we also know that the Khonshu, besides being so aggressive, his defensive options aren't so great. So that's why you might be looking good for go in and attack Khonshu and boost with and a beautiful pass to have an additional action to just run away from him after attack. Yeah, aggressive Houdini. I mean, it's the best strategy there because we know Moon Knight have 20 versatile cards which can be used for defenses also. And all of my insights on this game and experience, Houdini always wins with the aggression. I can be wrong anyways, but I think that's the right play as Houdini.
Yeah, I do think in general you're right, and Houdini wins by aggression, as we saw in the earlier semifinal. You know, he took some undefended hits, Kiet did, as Houdini, in order to then put even more offensive pressure onto Yananga and close out the game. So, yeah, Houdini doesn't win in the long game, right? He's not a fatigue fighter, so you definitely would like to see him pushing the aggression even in the face of Khonshu, because now this is a tough spot because sure, you might waste the Khonshu turn, but Chad is just fine, you know, just again having more breathing room like I had mentioned before. That's all he really needs. And the security camera he is going to use to see Animal's hand here, which is actually, it's not a very good offensive hand, so I can see why maybe he took the double maneuver instead of choosing the aggressive route.
I think I would have liked to see him go and attack with something that he doesn't really need as much, like that he was going to discard anyway, like the Vanishing Act, simply to keep up the aggression, not to discard to overdraw because of the implications in fatigue, and just to make Moon Knight or waste one of his resources.
Yep, I do agree with that, definitely. Like he might have been worried about taking the auto damage on the Moon Knight defense, right? But Houdini has a lot of health to work with, and he's got healing, as we can see it currently even sitting in his hand. And not only just healing, but in this matchup against Khonshu, you can pretty reliably use it on as a defense card to trigger its after combat, which actually prevents you from being defeated and sets your health to 4. So I don't think he needs to be concerned very much about his health total, at least at this point in the game. And now he's stuck in the same dilemma as he was in the previous turn, except now Chad has hand knowledge, and also Chad got to draw 2 more cards, so it might have gotten him some better defense options. And he knows what he's trying to line up these options into because he got to look at the hand. So, I don't know. I would have liked to see Houdini go in the previous turn, but at least he now is able to boost in with the misdirection and deal the auto damage since he's not in Khonshu form. And he also found the Sleight of Hand, which is a great card to see, so that he can go ahead and just bait into something like a Smoke and Mirrors if he really wanted to at this point, since the past and present is a 5-value defense.
Was Fist of Khonshu the last card that Chad played?
Yes, because then he took a double maneuver and then he did the security camera and maneuver.
Perfect. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, Chad's only played 3 cards so far this game. That was the 3rd card played, so.
Easy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Just happy to sit back and wait, I guess. But it is interesting that his deck count is currently lower than Houdini. That can't be right.
No,
I
Moon Knight's
think
currently at
Houdini's-
21.
Yeah, and Houdini showing up 25, but it's wrong, I guess.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, let's see if we can get that fixed.
Okay, no, I was like, wait a second, that means he just drew his hand. So no, that can't be right.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Houdini's currently sitting at 19.
Okay, that sounds right.
Chad gonna play Madness. Looks like as a pass. Heal the 2. Yeah, we're gonna try
Guys
to
wanna
refresh
pick
real
Moon
quick
Knight
here and
pick,
see if we can get these deck
definitely.
counts working.
There we go.
There we go. That's more like it. Yep. So 19 in deck for Moon Knight, 18 for Houdini. So pretty even, but we all know how Conchu does in fatigue. So definitely not where Houdini is wanting to go.
Vlad very strategic in using Madness as a pass because it does allow him to keep sitting in a full hand count, make Houdini have to approach him, which is kind of what he wants anyway, especially knowing that Houdini has a lot of less than optimal attack options in his hand. Just kind of biding his time until Houdini wants to come in, and then he will be prepared.
Yeah.
That is the strength of Moon Knight, having so many versatile cards, and I think the reason why Chad had originally told me that Moon Knight destroys Houdini, just because you have so many great defense options that are very easy to find, but if Houdini is aggressive enough, you can catch Moon Knight with suboptimal defenses, because although he has a lot of them, they're not all the highest value. So, you know, if you catch him with only like the auto damage ones, which are only a 2-value versatile, or the blank 3s, well, the blue 3s that only draw if you win, you can really deal some big damage over the top of those. But you got to be, you know, pushing the aggression so that Moon Knight can't just sit back and comfortably maneuver and draw into all the best defenses.
Do you think if I were Animal, I might be pressuring with Bess? Because you don't have a lot of necessarily your good, big Houdini attacks, that you can just go pester with Bess, continue to use up those defenses, and then if Moon Knight does choose to attack,
Oh,
he's attacking Bess, and you can kind of live with that a little bit. I think she's not necessarily crucial in this matchup.
Yeah, I do think that would be a great strategy, Ashley. You're not worried about any counterattacks, right, if it's Bess, pretty much. So the only thing Bess is good for in the matchup is keeping Smoke and Mirrors online for essentially an ultimate defense into a Conchu turn. But seeing as one of those is already gone, there's only one more even to consider. So, yeah, I think pressuring with Bess is not a bad idea. But we did see the massive 9-value big reveal over the top of a blank 3, essentially. Invalidating, that's the part I like, is a big win for Animal. And dealing 6 damage over that definitely swung the game a little more in his favor.
yeah, right.
Now we are going to see the Smoke and Mirrors swapping in Bess, and Chad choosing not to boost. He thinks it's not worth dealing the damage to Bess.
I think I agree with him there, since because that was the last Smoke and Mirrors, now he doesn't worry about that into any other Conchu turns. So it's not worth pouring a bunch of damage into Bess. She's really not going to be that big of a player anymore.
Yep, I do agree with that. And we are going to see a boost from Chad. Huh. Interesting.
Interesting position in there.
Yeah.
I have no idea why I did that.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out myself, and maybe he didn't want to be in a single maneuver range, but you're also Conchu, so I don't know. To me, that kind of signal, that's kind of a fishy play. If I was Animal, I would try to read into that play and maybe figure out why Chad would do such a thing, and it might be because Chad doesn't have the best defenses, because that's nowhere close to center stage. As Conchu, and even boosting to get there, I think just signals to me that Chad is defenseless, and if I'm Animal, I would want to go in right here for an attack, but it looks like he is going to play it safe and just maneuver back, which probably would be a breath of relief for Chad.
Or maybe
seeing Houdini's deck count not update itself.
Yes, you are
Okay.
right. Not sure
Or
why
is
it's
I just
not
don't wanna
updating.
quote that if it's not accurate.
Right, the Moon Knight deck is updating just fine. For some reason, the Houdini one is giving us trouble. He is currently at 14 cards in deck for Houdini. We're going to see an easy kill on Bess right there with Conchu throwing a 6.
Chad loves that card draw, I think.
Yeah, you know what? Come to think of it, we saw Chad's hand back the first turn, and he had 2 copies of Good Enough for Us. So it's not like he didn't have defenses that previous turn. He had some really good quality defenses. So I'm really just curious.
With Animal not going in there now, you're going to see him overdraw, which is another just interesting phenomenon. Ooh,
wow.
I like letting Bess die though, so you get access to that +2.
Oh, that is actually really strong. And you got the 2 auto damage from the misdirection. I would want to throw the 4 here with the +2 because in
Yeah,
anticipation of
right.
a feint. And that's exactly what we see.
Yeah, great read, John.
I think I'm just in Chad's head too much. We practice too much, so I can always usually call out the plays he's going to make. But Mr. Knight, given that defense buff, definitely was definitely helpful because only 1 damage from that attack, which could have been upwards of a 10 value attack if it wasn't canceled, because we know that 4 boost value scheme, I believe. Did he take that back? He did. He took it back when he used it for the big reveal. So that illusion could have bumped up to a 10 right there.
Yeah.
This I was like, oh my gosh, Chad should be down more, but the feint cancels the token, so I think that's a good thing to note for the viewers.
Yeah, definitely important. Yeah, we didn't really bring that up, but yeah, the feint, the tokens, they add a during combat effect onto the card that's being played that says, your card is +1 or +2, whatever the case may be. So the feint does cancel that during combat effect, of course. That was a big hit there, gone undefended by Animal, but I think that was a calculated risk because Houdini, again, has a lot of health to work with, and Moon Knight isn't the most aggressive fighter, at least in this matchup, because he's being pressured down and has to avoid lethal ranges. So I kind of like that take by Animal, but for Chad, I mean, that was really good that it was one of his 4s. The only problem was that he chose not to switch because he was already naturally going into a Conchu turn. So if, Chad wants that extra speed on his cycles later on in the game, he might be regretting getting rid of that.
Houdini doesn't really have any more passes, and Chad does have at least 1 more pass, so it's interesting to kind of see Houdini run to the other side of the map with a full hand count. I guess it is a Conchu turn, so you are worried about that.
Yeah. And, well, 5 spaces away isn't hard for Moon Knight being a move 3. You can boost with one of the throwaway cards like Let Your Insanity Guide You and easily go catch up. But Houdini is going to get use of that +1 item token here. Oh, wow. Chad just overdrawing that turn. Very strange play.
Maybe he doesn't have any sort of damage output.
Yeah, that's hard to believe, though, as Conchu, right? Because everything's bumped up, you'd think. But maybe he has only versatiles, and he refuses to use versatiles on offense, and he would rather push the game later towards fatigue and always have versatiles for defense. I think that would probably be the thought process from Chad. Only attack with the reds.
Oh, yeah, right.
So great call out, Anar.
I really do think that Chad's happy to take this into fatigue. I think he feels confident with that direction for the game. And so, at least with the health totals and passes where they're at right now and deck counts, I think that he doesn't necessarily feel worried about that kind of element. So,
Yeah, and we also know that Moon Knight have one more healing scheme.
Yeah, so his effective health is still 9, which is pretty close and comparable to Houdini's. And Khonshu deals a ton of damage, just like Houdini does with his big attacks. But again, Khonshu not taking fatigue damage is a big deal. And Houdini runs out of damage. Khonshu theoretically does not until literally all of his cards are gone. So Chad just
taking that
trying to
double
weather the
maneuver
storm.
turn also forced Houdini to approach him while he's in his defensive Mr. Knight form. So I think there is also that to be said for why Chad might have made that decision.
That is a great point as well. And now we're going to see a tough situation because that's the part I like is a 4. And I'm sure Houdini does not want that winning and potentially knocking something out of his deck. But in order to avoid that, he's got to boost his Flourish and probably miss out on some damage because you got to boost with a 2 and you're only dealing 1 damage at that point. So I guess it's kind of interesting because you can choose to lose a card out of your hand, or you're going to choose to lose a card out of your deck. And if I'm Animal, I want to be the one making that decision, and so I would definitely ditch a card from hand so as to not lose potentially, you know, a big reveal or some massive card out of your deck at Chad's decision.
As well as it taking from your deck count, which will put you in fatigue more quickly.
Yes.
Well, yeah. And also, you can lose some crucial cards from your deck.
It is getting to scary range for Chad, though, in regards to lethals. And 5 health, I mean, another 9 value big reveal, which is on the table, will be confirmed lethal into almost everything. Well, it actually will be into everything Moon Knight and Khonshu can defend with. Unless there's a scheme on the top of Moon Knight's discard pile, which would let past and present bump up to a 5. But it's getting very, very scary for Chad here. He needs to find his healing quick, or else he could be in trouble.
We do have 1 feint not accounted for, correct?
Yes, there is 1 more feint for Moon Knight.
And 1 more feint Houdini for Houdini.
1 more misdirection for Houdini, so I don't know. This is looking a little bit scary for Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 more undefended, I'm not real.
Again, wow. I mean, this is great for Chad because now he can switch and get to Khonshu quicker.
But yeah, it also means that you are not using those attacks as Khonshu either.
Right.
Because we all know there is one, that's why I always win, 3 value attack that allows you to boost it. And maybe 1 I'm not real, if I'm not mistaken. Only 2 attacks left. I mean natural attacks.
Yeah, the actual red cards, which, like we talked about earlier, I think Chad only really wants to throw those. He's got to save all the defenses he can get.
I think it is good to remember that even though like Chad does need some defenses against Houdini, but Houdini only has maybe 2 big attacks left that he can throw. I believe he has 1 4 left.
Yeah, he's got flourishes as well, though, that can get up to 7s, 6s, and 7s. The thing is, he's got a lot of his big boost values left, right? He's got the sleight of hand, he's got the grand escape, he's got the scheme. So pretty easy for Houdini to land damage over the top of defenses. And I guess with that in mind, maybe Chad does have to flip the switch and just, whenever he gets a chance to make a double attack, right? Like maybe the previous turn he should have held his ground and have made a second attack instead of maneuvering away. And try to maybe just win the damage race, because if you give Houdini enough time, he will find his lethal. From the looks of it, I don't see any world in which Houdini doesn't get his lethal if he had whatever he needed at the time.
Yeah, and one more important thing to mention that Houdini also have set the stage, one more copy of it.
Yep. So there's a set the stage that can rip out the best defense, like the feint would be the target, right? You have a misdirection which can put Moon Knight down to 3, or even keep him at 5, even if Moon Knight finds his healing. So yeah, again, I just don't think there's any world in which Houdini doesn't have enough damage. So therefore, Moon Knight's got to flip the switch or find some way to turn this around.
Okay, I think that's lethal.
And that's going to be it.
No, please no.
Flip him. There's the 9.
Oh my
Got
god.
the 9 over the 4.
Oh my god.
Wow.
And he does it. That's Houdini for you guys. I mean, let's listen in on the players here.
End the stream.
Sorry. Oh my god.
Can you flip this card?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the 4.
Yeah. I knew, but I wanted the stream to know. So way to go, dude.
Oh,
Well played. I knew that it was a risk. Here, let me show you. So I could have boosted with Travelers. To
Because then you
try
can.
to give myself a 5 value defense. But I said, what are the odds you have your last big reveal? Which is it's always a dangerous game to play.
The question.
But I felt I needed to play that game to kill you, because otherwise, I think, yeah. Oh, you had the misdirection. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt like I had to do it, because if you didn't have it, you have to double maneuver. Then I can Travelers and play one of these. And then like I smack you real hard, so like it would have been a 7. I think I would have put the pressure on you to where I would have been in a good spot, but I'm not sure if I could have. Yeah, I would have been in a decent spot, but here, let me draw this up. There it is. Okay. So,
Yeah, there's the heal and there's the feint.
but yeah, great game, dude. Well done.
You too.
I thought I had it. I thought I was sitting pretty. The turn when
All right. Well, there it is. I mean, Houdini did his thing. He pulled off the big reveal, so to speak. So, man, what a game. It's always so intense because Houdini just flips the game around on a dime, and you can never count him out until the health dial hits 0. So, Anar, what are your thoughts there on that matchup that we just saw?
Oh, it was a great matchup, absolutely. I love to see Houdini plays every time, because it all comes to like these small decisions and big hits. And when you see exact lethal, it's always great.
It's a great feeling as the Houdini player, at least, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But
It was a great game anyways. A lot of fun.
Definitely. Yeah, Ashley, are you shocked?
A little bit, honestly, but I do think, like, again, it haunts Chad when he makes major misplays, and he did it in that game. It's just a bummer to see, like, the feint and the healing both still so far down in the deck, and even if he would have been able to, like he said, boost with that Travelers and have a higher value defense, Houdini was still sitting on the misdirection, which would have been lethal the next turn. So, with stuff like that, you're like, okay, it's just like sometimes how it goes, and so I think he'll be okay with that. And he had said too, he's like, I love to just get to sit back and watch grands, so when he gets to top 4, I think he's okay with losing as long as it wasn't like majorly his fault. So
yeah,
by Animal for sure.
Yeah, definitely well played. Animal just did everything he needed to do. He took multiple undefended 4s that game, and look at his ending health. I mean, he ended at 10 health, so he knew what he was doing. Those were calculated risks. He did it. He played it perfectly, and Chad played it very well, as well. And I just think that, man, I would not say Moon Knight's favored into Houdini. I think Moon Knight is at the disadvantage to Houdini, regardless of what Chad might think. Maybe his thoughts have changed on that now, but this is kind of a similar situation that I faced in my matchup here, and it's just like when you don't have sidekicks to wall off with, it's very hard to hide yourself from Houdini. And unless you can perfectly line up like all your feints or pull off the that's the part I like, and knock, you know, key cards like big reveals or misdirections or set the stage out of the deck before they even have a chance to be played, it's just an uphill battle. So well played on both sides. I'm a little bit sad to see Chad lose. This is the first time he isn't in grand finals, but again, like you said, Ashley, I think he's happy with this outcome. He still made it to the top 4, which is incredibly good out of 112 people, and he at least continues the streak of always being in the stream, you know, semifinals weekend. So
I'll tell him that. That's his consolation.
exactly, yeah. So he's still got that streak going for him. So man, but we are gonna see a new champion though tomorrow, either Ito or Little Expressionless Animal. And unfortunately, Ito is having some power issues right now, so he had to drop off the commentator call. But we will still be getting the players in for interviews, and we'll start with Chad whenever he's ready, and then we'll go see if we can get Animal on here as well. And I know he was having some video camera issues for the connection in Vorpal, but hopefully we'll be able to get him in at least for the interview, because he's got to be ecstatic pulling off the big upset win against the previous champion. So yeah, that was just a great match yet again. I mean, this one was different than the one we saw earlier today, because I think the games, each individual game we saw earlier today was very close. They both came down to the wire, like in fatigue, and these games were just so explosive, every one of them, right? Like, they were still great games, but there was a complete opposite end of the spectrum. Do you think, are you a little bit surprised to see that, Anar? Do you normally expect more passive and defensive gameplay at the top level, or what do you think about that?
I totally love explosive games. That's what makes Unmatched an excellent game, because you can play it like a long chess game, or like an explosive ones. Both of them are great to see, great to commentate, great to play also. And I would rather say that this kind of explosive games gives you a more emotional outcome than the chess matches, I guess.
Yeah, I do agree with you. It's just exciting, right? As a spectator, to watch these explosive games, because you're always on the edge of your seat. You never know what's going to happen, because in the more chess style, like you had mentioned, in those kind of games where you're taking it fatigue and whatnot, as a viewer, you're able to math out, you know, the win conditions and the lethals and all of that, just like the players are. So you can kind of see it coming a lot of times, what's going to happen and how the game's going to turn out. But man, when they're explosive like this, you have no idea what's going to happen, and you're just waiting for the cards to be flipped over. And that's definitely a treat to watch. So I think I had a blast watching this. How about you, Ashley? Did you have a good time commentating?
Oh yeah, man, I definitely do this again. It's especially fun to just get to watch Chad play and kind of be a part of all this behind the scenes. But yeah, great time.
Yeah, definitely.
Declan's having the time of his life with his little best friend, so
nice.
Didn't even have to worry about him.
Very nice. Yeah, we would love to have you back again for some commentary. And I know you said, you know, it's a blast. It's great to just get to sit back and watch Chad play. So obviously you're counting on him being in the finals again next time.
Oh yeah. He's got a streak he's got to keep up.
Exactly. He's got to keep up the streak. So let's see if players are almost ready. We'll be getting them in shortly. Not quite yet. They're still getting it set up. Almost ready. So yeah, Chad had a lot to say with Animal after the game. Chad's a talker when it comes to, you know, end game scenarios. He makes those puzzle videos on YouTube. He loves just exploring win conditions and just the strategy behind this game. So I'm not surprised that he was, you know, chatting with Animal for quite a while after the game there. So correct me if I'm wrong too, but I think each of these games finished with like 10 or more cards in deck. That's pretty crazy. Alan's over giving me the hold on. Am I echoing? Yeah. Sorry, chat. All right, we're going to get Chad in here for an interview. All right, Chad, welcome. Thank you for joining us for the interview. First of all, congrats again, man, for making top 4. That's an incredible feat out of 112 players. And although your streak of making grand finals may have ended, you still have the streak of making it to the stream event. So as long as you keep that going, you got nothing to worry about. But very well played, man. How are you feeling after that match?
Yeah, obviously a little disappointed, just because I would have loved to be talking to y'all after a win, but game 1 was abysmal. Game 2, I kind of felt the other way around. I felt pretty in control for almost all of that game. I know it was his plan to kind of play low hand Daredevil against like Achilles and kind of, you know, a linear play style, so you can kind of play and play against that. But I think Achilles against almost anyway, if Pat dies like immediately, is pretty happy. Especially since I didn't really have anything that I was worried about losing in hand at times. So anyway, game 2 felt pretty in control for me. So I'm just glad that it went to a game 3, and then we had an incredibly close game 3. It was nuts, so close. So I'm very happy with how it ended, even though I ended up losing.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that you're sitting here saying, man, it was so close with such a big health differential, right? But it's like that's how Houdini games go. He can definitely just gas out and run out of damage output if you're able to defend well enough. And I had brought up, you know, how you were like, oh, Moon Knight destroys Houdini, and I think you just experienced kind of what I experienced in my first match of the tournament. And that's just Houdini doing Houdini things, you know, and just sometimes it goes that way, and there's not too much you can do about it. So a bit unfortunate, but I mean, you still played really well overall. How I wanted to ask though, I asked Ashley this, what I think she thought you would be feeling, but after that game 1, I mean, were you shaken at all? Were you shook, or did you expect to lose that one and you were like, it's okay, I'm going to make up for it in games 2 and 3?
Yeah, so my plan was to win games 2 and 3, or my advantage in neutral. That was my plan. So after game 1, I was obviously like, wow, that was so bad. But I just threw Drac there to say, hey, if it's anybody other than Muldoon, I think I've got a great matchup. And then if it is Muldoon, I think Drac can do it because, you know, you can miss form in and all this stuff. And I've never played that matchup ever, and I've never played against Muldoon on Solomon's Mind, but that was abysmal, dude. Yeah, it was just rough. So I was definitely shaken, but I knew that I'd played Daredevil, Achilles a number of times, especially with Ashley, and she was on the Achilles side and I was on the Daredevil side, so I knew that it was tough for Daredevil. And then I played Moon Knight Houdini probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 times. So I was pretty okay with that. And in all 9 of those games, Moon Knight won, except for this one.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So I got to ask, are you holding true to your thought on that matchup in that it's Moon Knight favored, or has your thought kind of shifted after this?
Yeah, so I still think that I hold to it. The map tokens, I just didn't want to hose myself in the map selection, and I think I might have a little bit, because my plan was get extra defense on the items, because Houdini has to be approaching, which I did get 1 extra from there, but then we saw that he was able to use the +2 because he forced me to kill Bess, which I felt like I needed to do at the time, and I had the feint, so I ended up only taking 1 from that. So right. It felt like a pretty good interaction, but he forced me to use my feint there, and we saw that if I'd had that feint, I would have been golden there at the end. So I still really do hold true to it. I'm just trying to figure out what map to go on, and I think maybe just an even keel map. He banned Rex Paddock, which would have been my choice. And so, but I still do hold true to it. It's a very, like, I didn't expect him to draw into all of his reds after seeing like his hand when I took the video camera,
Yeah.
which I loved the video camera on that map. But basically, I was worried about then the +2 token, which ended up being what it was, and then the electric floor. I didn't want the electric floor to come and bite me later if he just needed like 1 damage or something like that. But I really do. It's felt great for me in the past, and it really does. Like once Moon Knight stabilizes and he has enough defenses to then pressure Houdini, Houdini just dies.
Yeah.
And we were seeing the switch get there, and I was just about to flip at that turn, and I just played. I felt I had to play what are the odds that he doesn't have exactly what he had to play, because otherwise I could have boosted with my 3 boost, and so that I would have had a 5 value defense. But I didn't want if he had set the he could have pulled out like a 2 boost, and then I would have still lost there. And then he had to have a 4 and a 3 boost. I knew he had the 4 boost, but he had to have a 3 boost in the other big reveal. And I felt like that was a risk I was willing to take, because if I lost that Travelers, I didn't see myself closing out the game otherwise. And he had 1 4 and 2 flourishes left, and the big reveal, and a misdirection. And I don't see myself surviving all of those things. So I felt like I had to play that game, and I heard him on the chat saying, "What are the chances?" And I'm like, "Crap, he has all the pieces he needs." Like,
Yep. You never play that game. It's always 100%.
That's right.
But I do agree with you. I think you had to do it, right? I don't think you were winning otherwise.
So yeah, but it was very close. There were a couple times where I under defended things that I could have defended for more, and I regret that now. So there was one time I could have defended for a 5 instead of a 4 when he attacked with Flourish, because I had another past and present. So that would have given me an extra health there, right? Then there are a couple things where maybe my opinion on the matchup has changed of like, okay, like, do you always just block as hard as you can? Like, kind of figuring out those kind of things. But I think in all the interactions that we had an opportunity to, like, be if he's baiting out some big defense, and then I think he won a lot of those later in the game.
Yeah.
The first one went my way, but the second one's definitely in his favor. So.
Yeah, and I think that just shows the volatility of Houdini as a fighter, right? It's like you said you played this matchup 10 times, you only lost it 1 time. I mean, unfortunately, this was the one time where it really mattered, right? But that's just Houdini for you. He can just steal wins out of nowhere, and very explosive, which makes him fun to watch. But it's unfortunate to be on the losing end of that. Now, you did bring up, too, the map and Rex Paddock, and we noticed that Rex Paddock was actually the ban. And now, do you feel that us doing Matchup of the Month together may have given him that knowledge that he wouldn't have had otherwise and caused you to lose this game?
Well, I don't think I lost because of map, but because getting hand knowledge for me was huge. Yeah. I don't want to undersell that, so that was huge for me. And then, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe I need to be like you and Chocolate Rain and keep all the secret tech hidden until after the tournament.
What do you mean, like me and Chocolate Rain? I spill the beans all the time.
Just so everybody knows, I've been waiting to do my Everybody's Got a Thing Part 3, but John and Chocolate Rain both said, hey, wait on the Luke Cage and Genie tech until after the tournament. So that's specifically what I'm talking about.
Oh, I actually forgot about that, but now I'm remembering. That's funny. All right, well, it was still really well played in the end, Chad, and I'm sure the other commentators have maybe some questions or comments for you, so I'll kick it off to them.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a little bit about the assignment. Like, when you saw the fighters initially, like when you got your rosters, feel good or bad, and then where did you think his fighters were going to end up when you were choosing your assignments?
Yeah, so I felt good. I felt like we were both chilling on some good things. I thought his Muldoon for sure was going to be advantage, and I saw myself like I really wanted to win games on my advantage and then on neutral. I could have swapped Moon Knight to be on my disadvantage and Dracula to be neutral, which we would have seen a different game. Um, but I didn't want like I didn't want to. I felt like Moon Knight in most against most matchups of his was like a really good win, and so I didn't want to throw away like to it on disadvantage and maybe lose that. So that's why I did the assignment that I did, and I didn't want Achilles into Muldoon because I felt like that was pretty rough too. Where if he kills Pat really early, then he can just fatigue me out, and that didn't sound fun to me at all. So Drac just was where I so felt great about fighter assignment. After we flipped over, I still felt pretty great. I looking at my 2 games that I expected to win, I was feeling good, and then I felt like Drac could definitely win as well. So I was chilling, and then after game 1, I'm like, holy cow, that's pretty rough. So, but yeah, for the beginning with the fighters and the assignments, I was feeling pretty good.
And what was your 4th fighter again?
Sattler.
Oh, Sattler. Okay.
I picked Sattler specifically to scare him away from where he'd place his other fighters. So I wanted to warp where he'd place it to potentially force Houdini maybe onto my disadvantage or neutral, which I was hoping disadvantage, but I got neutral, which is fine.
Yep. Well, how about you, Anara? Any questions or comments for Chad?
Oh yeah, I had a lot to say.
Go for
So
it.
first question: it's not my honor, but it is my duty. What happened?
You stole my job.
Yeah, what happened? I really do truly feel like I was outplayed, and that to me, it makes me happy that the level of competition is continually rising. We saw like nobody returning from top 4 from last tournament except me, which is crazy. And then I'm out now, so that's huge. Like just to see that. So one, I'm very excited that the level of play is increasing. But I felt like fighter assignments. I don't feel like I got arsenaled or like just got horrible matchups across the board. So and then since game 1 and game 2 were so abysmal, like in the other ways, like I think it worked out that it was tied for that. So and then game 3, I truly do feel like I was outplayed, which makes me feel good. I really can't think of any like misplays that I had. There were some mind games that I lost, but I can't really point to one thing and be like, right there, that's where I messed up. And so that makes me happy that I feel I played pretty well for game 3 or for all 3 games, but game 3 specifically.
Yeah, I totally would agree with you. You are a great example of consistent high tier player. You're ending up being in grand finals for the last tournaments. You won the last tournament actually, and now you're in the semifinals, ending up and being in top 4. If someone would write a book, how to be a professional, consistent, unmatched player, it would be by your authority, Chad.
Thanks.
Yeah, and congrats again on your tournament run. It's besides you are not going for grand finals. You're a great player, and always it's a pleasure to be in there.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, well said, Anar. I'm going to just echo that too. I mean, Chad, you have the craziest unmatched streak we've ever seen in this game. I mean, you've literally appeared in the finals weekend of every single event that you've ever entered. So that is just ridiculous, right? You got to grand finals the first 2. You started off in the release rumble. You barely lost in game 5 to Wandering Caretaker. in the Release Rumble, which was your debut, and then we go to what was it, Winter of Champions last year, 2022, where me and you made it to the Grand Finals and faced off against each other, and I took that one, but then you came back to Grands yet again in the previous tournament, and then you ended up winning that one over Darkblade in another really close Game 5, and it's just been an incredible run. So to make it again to the top 4 out of such not only a high quantity of players, being the biggest event we've had yet at 112 starting, but just like you mentioned too, the level of the quality of the players it's just been insane to see the growth of the community and how good people are getting at this game. So to remain that consistent for this long is just really impressive. So very well done.
Thanks, I really appreciate it.
No problem.
And one more thing.
Ashley versus Chad Grand Finals next tournament.
That would be great to see.
It would.
Do you have
And
something
one
else,
more thing
Anar?
to mention. I was gonna say one more thing to mention. This world needs a new champion. Sorry, Chad.
Yeah, it's tough to hold the title, and retain that. So, as sad as it is to, not make it there yourself, like you mentioned, Chad, it is cool to see everybody else just doing so well in this game, and everybody loves, upsets and underdog stories and all that. So now you're just gonna have to do the same next tourney, right? So next tourney, everyone will be rooting for you because you'll be the one doing the upsets. So. Yeah, very well done, Chad. Thanks again for coming on for the interview. Thanks for playing. Is there anything else you want to say to the viewers before we sign off?
Yeah, just shout outs to Little Expressionless Animal. First games I've ever played with him. Not only were the games fun, fast. I love that because I felt like we were playing some top level Unmatched at quite a quick pace, which is great. Games 1 and 2 were fast for other reasons, but game 3 was pretty fast too. I think we still had like 10 or 12 cards left in deck each.
Record time.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, just well played and just an enjoyable person to play with. I can't say that with everybody I play with. You know who you are. No, okay. But just an enjoyable person. So I've got my vote for Grand Finals, which I will be watching tomorrow. Very excited for that. So yeah, shout outs to him. I believe my in-laws are watching again. So I would like to thank them for doing that. That's always fun. If my parents are watching, thank you guys. Once I start making money from this, I'll do you proud. Then I would love to just thank my wife, Ashley, who's here commentating. I never really thought that this would be something that we would share together. So it's just really cool that you kind of enjoy this game as much as I do. And I had a surreal moment this week where I'm working on my laptop in the living room and I'm hearing Ashley laughing in our bedroom playing ladder games. And I'm like, what is this? So just so cool that you enjoy this game as well, and I just really enjoyed getting to play this with you. So thank you for that. And then Declan is not here with me right now, but he is the future champion. I agree. We do need a new champion, and that champion is Declan. So I'm here for when he starts just tearing up the field with T-Rex.
Yeah, he is a chosen one.
That's right.
He's the real child of prophecy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll need to get him a What Happened onesie.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Chad. Well, thanks again. Congrats on your top 4 finish, and I'm sure we'll be playing some games sometime soon.
For sure. And I forgot, sorry, one more thank you. I know I'm verbose, but just thank you to Restoration Games for making this game and then supporting this tournament. No game company needs to do everything that Restoration does for this community. Like, And very few companies, in my opinion, do that. So not only do they recognize where they can support this community, they also take steps to do that. And that's unheard of, I think, or it's pretty rare. So that is just amazing. So thank y'all, everybody from Restoration that makes this possible. Just really cool. And then finally to the TOs, I believe we have Gary, we added Frank, we have Noah, we have John, we have Josh, and I'm missing one, right?
That's it. There's 5 of us.
5 of you now. So yeah, just thank you all so much for all the work you do to put this together. And this final stream always looks gorgeous. So just really a shout out to the TOs for playing this, and then the man behind the curtain, Alan, for doing all the work there too. So sorry, I didn't get you all in my first round of thank yous, but I just wanted to harp on that for a little bit. Your work for this community is truly unmatched.
Nice. Well, yeah, we all appreciate it, Chad. We're happy to have you here participating, and looking forward to more of you in the future.
Sounds great. See y'all later.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye.
All right, and then we have our winner here, Little Expressionless Animal. Congrats, first of all, man, on the big win. You pulled off the upset that nobody else could, knocking out the previous reigning champion. So I imagine you've got to be ecstatic right now, but let us know, how are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm feeling great. This was Chad was great to play against, really fun and great player, and I'm just happy that I pulled it. To be honest, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, well, you exceeded your expectations, and now you are advancing to the grand finals, where you are going to face off against Itokud, and one of you is going to be the new Unmatched champion. So it's so close, man. It's within reach. You just got one more match to go. So I got to ask you, though, leading into this match in particular, how were you feeling leading in, not necessarily before the match started, but specifically I want to know about after game 1. You had an absolutely dominant performance with Muldoon into Dracula there. So how were you feeling after that amazing game 1 win?
I was feeling pretty good. I was expecting that matchup to go that way, just from having in the past and in Solomon's Mine. I can put a lot of pressure on Drac. And it played out basically how I did. So that was really good too, knowing that I'd go in not with a good attitude to the next. Yeah, it felt like I was like, okay, step 1 done. Now I just gotta win one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you take a step by step, game at a time, right? And at the end of game 2, when you had the Daredevil loss, it did seem like you might have been a little bit flustered about that one. Do you think that had any effect on your gameplay going into game 3, or were you again just like, okay, forget about that, let's just focus on this game 3?
Yeah, I was a little frustrated in game 2 because I forgot to boost my maneuver at 1 or 2 points, which led to me dying at the end there. Probably was still in a really good spot to win that, just with all of his feints and battle hardens left. Yeah, but that I was in my head a little bit there. I was thinking what I needed for the next game. Since I went first, I was thinking oh, wouldn't it be if I had set the stage turn 1, some big attack, something that I can swap. Something that a defense I can get out of the way in case he tries to do the Midnight double attack into Kanchu. And then I'm drawing my cards and I get set the stage, I get the best swap card, I get a big reveal, and I'm like, okay, I think I have a chance now.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was a little in my head, but that moment happened, and then I felt like I was like, okay, I'm still in this.
Yeah, definitely. And you did what you had to do. You know, you just keep your head on straight and play the best you can in that last game. And yeah, it sounds like you had the RNG gods on your side there with the exactly the card draw that you were asking for. So that you always love to see an opening hand like that, especially as Houdini with Set the Stage can be incredibly deadly. So yeah, I mean, just really well played overall. You guys are both just incredible players. So to watch this top quality play with such explosive matchups and explosive games was really a treat, because you know, a lot of Unmatched games can drag out. They go really long into fatigue and whatnot. It's very calculated and mathed out in the end game scenarios. And man, this match had none of that. It was all just gas the whole time, just explosive plays all over the place. And that was just really cool. There was a lot of big takes on both sides, which just makes things really exciting. So you definitely put on a show for the viewers. So it was just awesome to spectate and commentate for. So very cool. And yeah, I'm going to open it up to the other commentators, though. Do you guys have any specific questions or comments you want to throw out there?
I am wondering if Robin Hood was banned.
No, Robin was not banned.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know if we'd see Robin into Houdini again.
Aware that
yeah,
happened last
so
time.
very interesting in that.
Go ahead, Animal. What were you going to say?
Yes, sorry. I was aware that happened in Chad's last game, and I tried the match out a few times, and it still seemed pretty bad. But I figured that if I could get Luke Cage on my roster pretty early, then like I think he'd probably be too scared to pick or if even assign Robin.
Yeah, that's a great thought, and I think you've done your research on Chad, and that's what you got to do, right, in preparation for these big matches, because the draft is huge, and so you did exactly what you needed to do, and it worked out, right? You got the Luke Cage, and it did probably scare off a Robin Hood pick, and even if he did happen to get him, I doubt he would assign it with Luke on the other side. So yeah, really well done there. And I do got to ask, how did you know to ban T-Rex Paddock against the Moon Knight?
I'd seen Chad play before on that map. I think at least one of his Moon Knight Dracula game. Actually, I think he's played Moon Knight Dracula in bracket on that map. Both sides of that, and I know that it's a good Moon Knight map just because they're like the two trap spots in the middle where you can get anywhere with the travelers. I figured like he could also do something like that with Raptor Paddock, but I figured if I could take his favorite map, that would probably there's people probably love about that map that I don't, so it's probably best to do one that we're like both not like masterful at, because yeah, I'll take any hit I can get.
Yeah, and very smart to do so. You've obviously done your homework, so yeah, well done there, because that's definitely his favorite map pick. So all that that studying of your opponent pays off. So you're going up against Ito tomorrow in the grand finals. So you're gonna have your work cut out for you tonight in terms of studying his past matchups, I'm sure. But then, how about you, Anar? Any specific questions or comments for Animal?
Oh yeah, I want to congratulate on your moving up to grand finals, and I have a couple of questions for you. Is it your first Unmatched tourney?
Yes, it's.
Oh wow, that's huge. And I also have one interesting question for you. I want to steal some work from Mike and John. Huge shout out to them. Defender Resolve First podcast. So, what is your Unmatched origin story?
I don't think it's that exciting. At one point I saw the Shut Up and Sit Down like review of it, and I thought, that looks pretty neat. And then I forgot about it for a year. And then I saw Battle one in Barnes and Noble, and bought it. I played it with friends, and then like I think I got like the Buffy set, and I was like, oh, this is cool. There are a lot of these, so I kept doing it. Got to playing pretty regularly with my friends and roommates. And then eventually one of them was like, hey, you should join a tournament. You're getting pretty good at this. So I did, and yeah, that's how I got here.
Oh
Well
wow,
done.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very impressive. For a first, debut of your tournament run, just to make it to grand finals is incredible already. So I'm sure you're going to be happy no matter what. You've got to be proud of yourself for getting to this point. But I also know, there's only one match standing between you and the trophy. So I am sure that's what you're shooting for tomorrow. So I got to ask, too, it's a kind of a new format for you tomorrow. It's going to be a best of 5 instead of a best of 3. So you are going to be picking 5 fighter rosters, and you're going to have to assign every one of your fighters. So how are you feeling going into this new draft format tomorrow? Have you thought about it much or prepped for it at all? Or what are your thoughts on
I haven't done like an extensive like thinking through of all of it and like all the different rounds and stuff like that. But I have thought about maybe what my first round draft might be, although that's of course subject to change. I think there are like, because of the fact you have to assign every fighter, I think there are some fun possibilities there. That, Chad knows because I told him before the match, but I'll wait to pull that out if I do.
Yeah.
Um,
You got to keep your
yeah.
secrets until tomorrow. But yeah, are you planning on trying to get some of that, maybe at least draft practice in tonight, or are you just gonna, chill out, enjoy your win right here, and then just get some sleep and be well rested, or are you gonna be, practicing through the night?
Probably not much more than a little like drafting practice, maybe more. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I'm just happy to get to this point.
Yeah, as you should be, man. It's very impressive once again. So just congrats for making the top 2, and good luck to you tomorrow in the grand finals. And is there anything else you want to say to the viewers before we sign off?
Well, like Jez said, like thank you so much to Restoration Games for like sponsoring this and for the TOs for putting this on. Also just for all the great people in this community who've like helped me like practice or played with stuff like that. Yeah, it's a really great community, and I'm really happy to have been a little part of that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're definitely happy to have you, and hope to continue to have you in more events in the future, because you're obviously a force to be reckoned with. So go ahead, enjoy your win, go relax, treat yourself out to some dinner or something, maybe order in some food, and get some good rest, and we'll see you again tomorrow in the grand finals.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Take care. All right, and that brings us to the end here. We'll be signing off shortly, but again, just big thanks to Animal and Chad for such an amazing match. And it's not easy to play on stream in front of such a large audience, and also these players are playing in like extraordinary circumstances where they're not just casually sitting down to play, right? They're being instructed by us behind the scenes of like, okay, wait, you guys can't start yet. Okay, now go ahead and start. So there's like a lot of waiting behind the scenes for them, which definitely can play into like the mental game and everything. So it's just kind of a lot to ask, right? To take a big chunk out of their day to do this. So big thanks to all the players who we've seen today for putting up with that. And hopefully they had fun in the process. I'm sure they all did. It's just really cool to have such a great production here. So also, again, thanks to 645 Development for putting this on. It's quite the spectacle. So before we sign off, though, Anar, do you have any last words or anything you want to say?
Oh yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I have a lot of fun doing with all you guys. Thank you so much, Alan, for bringing this on. Thank you so much, Restoration Games, for doing such a great job making this unmatched game and so on. Thank you everybody for watching this, and I hope we'll be having a great time watching Grand Finals tomorrow.
I'm sure we will, Anar, and it's always a pleasure to have you on for commentary. You do a great job, and it's a pleasure. So thank you for joining us today. And Ashley, how about you? Any last words for the viewers?
Yeah, I hope to see some of y'all in ladder. I'm trying to pick that up and play a little bit more. Ladder is the best. If you're not doing it, give it a try. It's a lot of fun to have that kind of casual competitive play, and I know that John and Frank have spent a lot of time getting that together with the Ladder Council. I just love this game. It's so fun to get to kind of all the friends that both Chad and I have made through it, and the connections, and being a part of this community is really awesome. So thankful for you guys. We'll definitely be watching finals tomorrow, and good luck.
Yeah, awesome, Ashley. Well, it was a pleasure again to have you on commentary, and hope to do it again sometime in the future. And we'll definitely get some ladder games in at some point.
Sounds good.
All right, and that'll about wrap it up. I'm Zero Skater 12. If you guys are unfamiliar, I do have a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel. You can check it out. I make unmatched content. And you can also subscribe to me on Patreon. I got to throw that one out there, or else Connor will yell at me. But I do a series called Matchup of the Month on YouTube, where I take a deep dive into just all kinds of different matchups, and I take suggestions from the Patreon subscribers, and I randomly choose one of those suggestions for each episode. So if you want to suggest your own episodes, go ahead and check me out on Patreon. But I really appreciate all the support from everybody out there on a personal level with all of my own content. It's a lot of work to do all that, but the community is just fantastic, and the responses I get from the viewers and everything is just something special. So that's why I keep doing it. But obviously, it's a lot of work, a lot of time investment. So any kind of monetary reward you can get from it, it's kind of just a little consolation prize. But I appreciate each and every one. So yeah, check me out on YouTube, Twitch, all that good stuff. And we'll wrap it up. Thanks again to Restoration Games for, again, sponsoring this amazing event and just having such a great community behind them that they are fully supportive of. So it's just really special, like Chad had mentioned in the interview. Not many companies would go to the lengths that Restoration does for this community. So really special. I also do want to give a shout out to Ito, who we don't have on camera right now with his connection issues, but he did a great job on commentary as well, and he will be playing in the grand finals tomorrow against Little Expressionless Animals. So good luck to him there. But that'll just about do it. Just remember, everybody, that daylight savings time is tonight. If you're in the U.S., the clocks will be moving ahead, which means essentially we're going to be starting an hour earlier tomorrow than we originally had planned, right? Because our time start time was set to 10 a.m. Eastern. Now, 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow is actually going to be like the new 9 a.m. Eastern. So just try to be ready a little bit sooner than expected. Make sure you follow us on Twitch so you can get those go live notifications. Of course, consider subscribing as well to the Twitch channel if you feel like we deserve it. I think Alan's done just an excellent job with the production as always. So some subs are always appreciated. But yeah, daylight savings time, don't forget about it. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. So I'm really looking forward to a great match, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.